Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast with Money Mike Carnahan, Tropic Thunder Tolly Grimm, Pretty Boy Sean Castleberry, the Manic Hispanic, and Shiloh, where we look at all the divisive headlines in our country and we present both sides of the argument. It's the American Idiots Podcast, and it begins right now. What's up, everybody? Go ahead and grab in your drinks. Go ahead and grab your vape pen, everything, because we're in here for the long haul. Starting tonight, we're going to go to a new 3-hour format, and we're all pretty excited about this. I took a nap earlier because I was like, man, I got to do 3 hours of radio today. My goodness. But no, anybody that does radio, I'm sure knows how hard that is to fill 3 hours. But let's go ahead and bring everybody in because we have plenty of topics to discuss tonight. And we'll start with Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder, how you doing this week?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Mike?
Hey, I can't complain. Doing pretty good this week. Doing pretty good. And the Manic Hispanic, who looks a little distracted right now. You distracted by some food over there?
No, sir. I was getting some paper ready for these videos that you tend to play. I like to make notes about topics I would like to talk about as I'm watching the video.
Okay.
Got to write things down because a lot of times I don't remember 20 minutes later.
Hey, I feel that, man. Yeah, freaking, it can get pretty difficult to remember everything you want to bring up. Even though it's a 3-hour show, it's pretty hard to remember in the certain... Antonio, you adjusting too?
Yeah,
hey.
I'm
trying to make sure I'm proper.
No wardrobe malfunctions.
As far as my week's been good. Thanks for asking, Mike.
My bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
I guess that's only a question you ask women.
We were getting there.
Oh.
We were getting there, Manic Hispanic.
Took the boat out.
Hey, did you join the Trump boat parade?
I did.
Okay,
you know,
that'll be interesting.
Are the friendliest people. It's really awesome.
I'm actually really interested to hear your thoughts on that because we are going to talk about that today. Apparently, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was out there, so definitely something interesting.
Well, we were on Lake Hamilton. She was on Ouachita.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was going on in several places. To my understanding, this was a nationwide one.
Oh, yeah. I think there was one in Florida today. Of course, we'll talk about the one in Texas where, unfortunately, some people lost their boats. But we'll get to that.
Insurance, baby.
Yep.
Insurance.
Hey, there you go. Well, we'll go ahead and bring on our next co-host, Miss Shiloh. Shiloh, how you doing this week?
Well, you know,
I have a habit of doing this, man. Just catching y'all at the wrong times.
it's true. It's fine though. You know, this week's a little up and down.
Before you bring them in.
I know, right? I really should do that. There's
definitely a chat here.
The only one that gets any sort of advance notice is Sean because we play the song for him. That's kind of messed up.
You are enabling him, and I'm just gonna say that's.
We are enabling his giant ego.
I deserve my own theme song, and I want it to be this song from Hawaii that's in the movie The Wrong Missy, and it's called Utu Bang Bang.
Well, you send it to me, and I got you, Tropic Thunder.
Yes! Now I'm also enabled.
Not until it starts playing, Tolly. Not until it starts playing.
Right.
We'll see if he loves me as much as Sean.
Well, we will. You got to remind me, and we'll see how much I love you. But we're going to go ahead and welcome back a guest we had last week. Miss Fox is going to be joining us here tonight. Fox, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. Are we putting in requests for theme songs?
Apparently we are.
Is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? Because I definitely want WAP to be mine.
Oh, no. If WAP's going to be a theme song on here, I'm out. I'm out.
Definitely want WAP. I will also take the Guillotine. I'll also take that one. So, dealer's choice.
WAP. Wow, we haven't even talked about that yet on this show, but that is certainly a topic to bring up. Okay, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on the guy with the biggest ego, the pretty boy, Sean Castleberry. Hey, it works out because guess what? I got to feed my dog while his stupid music was playing. What's up, Sean? How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Glad to be back with y'all this week, and we got a ton of topics to talk about. Thanks to you, number one, Sean, for keeping up this week, because throughout the week, I'll forget crap, honestly. I'll be thinking, man, that'll be a good topic, and then 2 days later, I'll blank it. So I'm certainly glad you kept up with some of these this week.
I just take notes during the week. I use OneNote for everything, and I just jot stuff down all week long, and I just copy it and send it to you.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I do appreciate you for tagging me in these stories and all that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go ahead and start because Shiloh and Manic Hispanic, y'all are, I'm putting y'all on the defensive already. Did this man really just say that he called American soldiers who passed away in foreign wars losers and suckers?
Here's the thing,
Well,
Mike.
you know, I have searched Google and searched Google and YouTube and everywhere else, and I cannot find any video or audio of him saying any of that.
Oh, Antonio, don't you know what's great about this? It's sources inside the White House say that he said it. No one's actually come forward and said, this is exactly what he said. No one has any recordings. No one has said, this is when he said it. It's just anonymous sources, just like anonymous sources said that Russia was colluding with him, and anonymous sources just keep coming up with all this stuff to say against the president.
I heard something a long time ago, and I see more and more it's the truth. All it takes is an accusation. You don't have to have proof anymore. You don't have to have facts. All it takes is an accusation nowadays.
Oh, of course, especially when the mainstream media is 100% against you. All you need is an accusation.
I could certainly see that, though. That's a good point.
If we can go back about 20 years, it was just, unreliable sources that told us that we needed to go to war over weapons of mass destruction. And we know that's
true.
I agree. So I can kind of
true.
see where you're coming from, but this was actually verified on Fox News. And Trump is mad as a hornet at Fox News right now, and has said it's not playing in the White House anymore until they fire the woman who actually verified the story.
Well, we'll bring it.
Verified how?
Haven't found that story.
Are you talking about Laura Ingraham?
Yeah, she has actually spoken to some reliable sources, as she says, in the White House that obviously don't want to get fired tomorrow.
True.
Because Trump
he does have a tendency to have a hair trigger.
Right,
Exactly.
because people in the White House haven't lied about Trump before.
No,
True also. I mean, it's politics. It is what it is. But we have this story here from the CBC, and I do have the original article that they will reference from the Atlantic that came out, I believe, last Thursday. So we'll watch this real quick.
Hold on. Before you play that, I just want to say it does follow his character as far as how he did attack Gold family members, how he did attack John McCain. It makes perfect sense.
And did so again today, by the way.
Yeah, he did so again today. And he never served, because of bone spurs or whatever excuse that he used. The guy's a coward. And he thinks that people that go to war, they're poor. Most people that, join the military are poor. They have no other option. He looks down on poor people. He doesn't give a shit about them. For the military,
I don't think that's true at all. The people who join the military aren't necessarily poor, aren't necessarily people who have no other option. Because honestly,
Sean is saying that he thinks Trump assumes people that join the military are poor.
Well, I mean, they have done studies where they've taken polls from active duty military members, and like the top 3 answers that people give for why they join the military are money, benefits, and free education.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're.
I mean, if it wasn't about targeting
if they
poor
had money,
people,
they wouldn't need those things.
correct.
Let's be
and
honest,
if it's not about targeting poor people, then why are we putting recruiters in our high schools and
Yeah.
predominantly in poor high schools?
The top 3 recruitment bases for the U.S. Army are all in. Well, 2 of them are Guam and American Samoa, which goes without saying are territories that are severely impoverished. They don't have the benefits like Hawaii has or Puerto Rico had before the storm that destroyed Puerto Rico of tourism. We don't have that in Guam and American Samoa. So what you do see is football players and Army guys specifically.
Well,
I'm not saying that it's not a good option for people who are hard off. I'm just saying that's not.
That are hard off?
Yeah, hard off. That's another word for poor, Sean.
We'll check out this video and we'll be. Sean, be good. Be good.
But what
We're
if
gonna watch
it's
this
hard
video
on?
and you're gonna be good.
No, it's hard up.
Hard up.
Shame on all of you.
Hard off where I'm from.
Hard on where I'm
odd, the President of the United States skipping a ceremony to honor Americans killed in the First World War, blaming the weather, even though other officials made it. The Atlantic magazine reports that on that specific visit, Donald Trump told staff, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." Later, he called 1,800 Americans who died in the legendary Battle of Belleau Wood suckers for getting killed. The reporter behind the story stands by it and his high-level, unnamed sources.
He doesn't understand why one would go pay that level of respect to fallen American soldiers.
Trump called it fake news, blaming the story on disgruntled former employees.
They had a rainstorm, the likes of which you've rarely seen. The fog was so great. It was as dense as I've ever seen. And I said, nope, I want to go. I insist on going.
Trump also denied calling former prisoner of war and Senator John McCain a loser, despite an established record of saying exactly that.
He lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. He's not a war hero.
My stepson was not a sucker.
Veterans groups are already looking to capitalize on the story, which has been confirmed by other outlets, including Fox News. For some veterans, the story speaks volumes about Trump's patriotism.
To me, his patriotism it's a show. It's no different than anything that he's been doing, over the last couple of decades on television.
Trump has survived storms like this before, but a new poll earlier this week found for the first time in 4 years, more troops support Joe Biden over Trump.
Good afternoon, folks.
Biden, meanwhile, whose late son Beau served in Iraq, tried to contain his rage.
I'm always cautioned not to lose my temper. This may be as close as I've come.
Biden said Trump has no sense of loyalty to anyone but himself, an attack that could resonate in a divided country where the military is often a unifying force. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
So
I just looked up.
Oh, man.
Here's some laughing.
I just looked up the data.
Go ahead,
He
Fox.
says Trump
Hold on.
has no loyalty except for to himself.
I would agree. Fox.
That's every freaking politician in Washington.
True.
Right?
Hold on, Fox. Go
Wait,
ahead.
so we're calling Trump a politician now?
Yeah, he's no politician.
Hold on, y'all.
The reason
Fox,
I'm not. I'm
this-
just saying it's the same thing.
y'all, Fox
So-
was trying to say something.
I just looked up the data because we were discussing military enlistment and like how where most enlistment comes from. And just at a first glance, so only 17% of enlisted personnel come from households that make 87K or above. So I'm not sure like what everyone's
That's just middle class, 80.
correct.
80,
correct.
90,000.
21% is 66 to 87, 22% is 53 to 66, 21% is 41 to 53, and 19% is everything under 41.
Cool.
just
So that's still mostly middle class.
I mean, well, what do you call
Middle class in America.
Well, middle class is
middle class in
technically
America is
80 to
75,000 or
90,000.
more.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it 75? I thought it was 80. I didn't know.
Yeah, I would say so. Like when we talk
I thought
about,
the number was like
and
80.
and this is obviously I'm going. Well, I'm not going to say obviously. I'm going to assume that these income levels are before taxes, because anything else when we talk about
Yeah,
income level
yeah.
is going to be before taxes. So you know, an
Obviously.
80K income level before taxes is going to become after taxes more like 55.
And it's fair to remember it's the national
So-
average, but like in Arkansas, you don't need to make 80,000 a year to be middle class, like in
Correct.
Arkansas.
At the same
I think it's
time,
important to always remember that data with that cap.
whenever we talk
Yeah, so
about
this-
income levels, are we actually talking about it before taxes? Like, I don't talk to people about my income, like my income level before taxes. I don't even know what that is. All I know what it is after taxes.
To be fair, I would agree with Shiloh.
Yeah, I can see your point.
This data is based on the census. So I guess however you
Okay.
respond on the census.
And then I guess the
Yeah, so that's true. It may very well be after
my
taxes.
point, though, because most people responding to the census are going to say, "This is my income." No one knows what their income is before
Right.
taxes.
Nobody looks when they fill out the census form at their pay stub of what they're making before taxes.
They do the quick math.
Oh, are you guys doing the thing?
Yeah.
You do not want me involved in this because I'm gonna school all you bitches.
Hey, come on back. Come on back. I like that dude.
Duty.
I like
it. The multiracial gay conservative. What's that?
Who's my best friend, Zach, you guys?
It's like a shiny Pokemon. It's like a shiny
What's up, man?
I mean, it's a good one, but like, and I like her hair color. Hello.
Thank you.
Anonymity. It's important.
Wait, what are we talking about right now?
We're talking about Trump.
You're a shiny Pokemon. Oh.
Trump and how he's gonna win this this election. Like,
I think we've all come to that conclusion. But no, we're talking about the comments with the soldiers calling them losers and suckers.
Didn't see that one, but you know.
The Atlantic article?
Is that the dog again from the last video?
Yes, it's the dog again.
What kind of dog,
dog, man?
Needed a murder.
She's a German Shepherd and a pit bull mix.
You can't win.
my God, the
Those German
best.
Shepherds, I love them.
She's sweet though.
I'm gonna get out of here because I'm about to ruin all your guys' stuff. But all right, goodbye.
Be good, man. No. So
As far
talking
as
about
counting
this
my
though,
income, that's the way I do it. Money per hour times 40 hours a week
times 52 weeks.
52 weeks a year.
So before tax.
Yeah, that's how I've always tallied what my
I mean,
income.
I've always been on salary, so like I know what I make.
I was just about to make the point.
Well,
If someone's on salary, they know
There
what
it
they
is.
make. But
Yeah.
And also
if you're
think
working
about-
by the hour, a lot of people just take their weekly or their biweekly, what they know they make in a month, and they're like, okay, well then, in about 12 months, a year, this is about how much I make then. And
Right.
so a lot of people that are like lower class, I would say, like just I don't know, just to classify it. I feel like we would
Yes,
add it
class
up like what
put us
you're
in.
saying.
Well, I would also say that like 80K for a single person, that's a lot of fucking money.
That's
But
a lot
anyway,
of money.
80K for a two adult household with multiple children, that's not a lot of money. So
You're right.
I think that I would say that I don't know the demographics of like what a typical family in America looks like. I know it used to be like 2 adults and like 2.5 kids or something
2.5
like that.
kids and a dog.
And a dog.
You've cut the third one in half.
You share it with
like
the
3.5
neighbors, Sean.
I would say, looking at this, if the majority, and I'm going to say majority because it looks like, 83%? 83% of military enlisted personnel, if they come from households that are under that 87K, and we also cross-reference that with what a typical family in America looks like, I'm going to say that those are not going to be like wealthy families. And even if they're middle class, probably going to be like lower middle class. Like, yeah, they probably have a mortgage, but it's not like the best mortgage. Yeah, their parents probably don't live paycheck to paycheck, but they probably also don't have like a really strong savings account. So I just think that like the definition of middle class and the definition of poor has changed over the years. At the very least, since I've graduated high school, I used to think we were rich, and if that income would not have paid the bills. My parents' income back then would not have paid the bills, and it's only been 10 years since I've graduated.
Right.
So I think that I'm not going to say that I am wrong, but I am going to say that I will probably cross-reference that with other information. Just at first glance, it definitely looks like at least an equal amount of poor to middle class enlisted personnel, if not majority.
I can see your point when you bring up the average family, and with that income, I think we can agree that if you look at how diverse our soldiers are, they come from a variety of different backgrounds.
All walks of life. Really?
Every walk of life.
Now I would say probably officers. Officers probably come from affluent families because you know just the cost of going to school or going to West Point or officer training school. Like you've got to pay tuition to go to those places, and if you don't get a scholarship.
Unless you wait until you're in the military to take your classes and all. Like I've got a really good friend. He enlisted, and right out of high school, not a lot of money because he stopped dealing drugs. He's been working his butt off to go to officer training school the last couple years, and he's got his bachelor's now. He's getting ready to go to OTS. So
I mean that's true.
Yeah, to say that officers come from affluent families isn't incorrect. But there's also plenty of officers that have worked their way up. And to say, the officers are all the rich kids is really discounting the accomplishments of the enlisted men who work towards it.
Through my experience, I can say that if you enter as an officer, yes, you probably came from an affluent family. But there are plenty of opportunities to cross-train through OTS and get into being an officer in the military. One thing I want to say though on this subject is you started saying, is there any credibility? There's a pattern of behavior on this though. There's no questioning the fact that he did even again today say that John McCain was a loser. He said he had no respect for him. He said, I just ideologically disagree, but that means I have no respect for him. I'm the one who paid for his funeral. Like, he threw that shit out there. The fuck did that mean for anything, honestly?
He didn't pay for his funeral.
If you look at
he authorized.
back when he was talking, he did not call John McCain a loser for being in the military. He did not call him a loser.
He called him a loser for being a prisoner of war.
He called him a loser because
he said he wasn't a hero for being a POW. He did not say he was a loser for it.
Even that statement alone is disrespectful enough, though.
I gave money to his campaign for presidency when he was running, and he lost. He's a loser. And he only came out with that because John McCain started attacking him.
Really?
And also, there's stuff going back as far as 10 years before John McCain's funeral showing that he's a traitor. Remember how his flag was wrinkled when he was during his funeral, the flag covering his casket was wrinkled? Do you guys know what that means? You're military, so you should. John McCain was a traitor.
John McCain was not a traitor.
Songbird McCain.
That literally just struck me.
To train and arm ISIS.
Hold on a second. How can any fucking conservative in this country call John fucking McCain a traitor?
That literally just hurt me in my soul.
Nope.
You just called John McCain a
she's correct. She's correct in that the U.S. government helped arm and train not just ISIS but also Al Qaeda and a whole slew of.
That goes all the way back to Reagan. That goes all the way back, to before Carter.
Okay, so if you agree that it goes all the way back, then why are you so surprised by me calling out John McCain and Obama for it?
John McCain is not a traitor, okay? President Obama is not a traitor.
Obama gay.
Full of money.
What's that?
Obama gay?
Full of money.
I'm gonna have to sit here and be quiet on this one. I'm still wrapping my mind around John McCain being a traitor.
Personally, like my personal opinion, I don't think that any of them are traitors because they're doing exactly what the government is designed to do, which is to fucking perpetuate neo-colonialism and imperialism in foreign countries anyway. So to me, that's just them acting within the purview of
Don't look at me, I'm not involved unless they want me to be.
That's just
because
how
the United States is
how
the
West
evil
is
empire.
treated.
You know, you guys should.
I don't agree with
that.
that.
No, you
I don't
should.
agree with that statement, Sean.
Well,
But
okay,
the fact that John McCain, one of the most decorated veterans, one of the most decorated veterans to ever serve as a congressperson in Congress, is a traitor.
Here's the thing.
Literally triggers me to no end. Like, that is
You
so
said you deny
disrespectful.
the whole thing about the evil empire, right? How many people died in 9/11? Less than 3,000, right? And we killed how many innocent civilians? 3 million in the Middle East? That's a little bit of overkill, don't you think? And
Sean,
we're still
we've had
going?
this talk.
Yeah, but I'm saying we're still going? This endless war on terror?
Actually, we're working on pulling out.
Right.
Are we?
Are we? Out for like a decade.
It'll be another 20 years before they pull out of there.
Last rotation for Little Rock is going out. This rotation of my friends just left. So 4 months we're out of there as far as, you know, this base goes. Just saying.
The cleanup crews in Afghanistan
I was
are
about to
already
say
deploying.
the Air Force deployed their last group to Iraq in 2013. Well, I was still in, so 2011. So
I mean, we still
we're
have
still
bases
in Iraq.
Well, and
we
like,
have
I just
bases
don't
in
trust.
180 countries right now. So
I just don't trust a military that still has like bases.
that's not going away.
In
We're a goddamn
other
empire,
countries that are supposed to
and
be
we're
our
trying to
allies.
control everything in the fucking country. Tell everybody how to fucking do their job and
To
what they
be fair-
do. And we're greater than everybody else.
Fair to your point, Fox.
For it.
To be fair to your point,
Most
Fox,
have it.
It's not necessarily that we. It's hard to explain, but there's a trade, and Sean, I guess you can speak to this, and same with you, Antonio. There's almost a trade, so to speak, of military members amongst allied nations. So Turkey, I've worked with Turkey airmen. I've worked with, all sorts of allies that we have. So it's not necessarily, the majority of those bases are furnished by their military or employed by their military that I've seen. It's just got the U.S. name on it.
Well, isn't that, well, I don't want to say soil, but doesn't that land count as U.S. soil for the purposes of like births? Because I know, so my best friend, her
I know
father
Japan does,
born
but I
in
don't
Italy.
believe
So
it.
is Germany.
Does it?
So is Germany. Because
I know for
my
sure
best
Italy
Japan, and
friend
then
was
I
born
guess
in Italy,
Germany.
and
if
Italy's
you are
the same.
born, if you're born on a military base in a foreign country, you're a U.S. citizen.
Oh, I
You're
wasn't
not
born on a
citizen.
military base. I just have two American parents.
Right.
So you
Well,
become a
I'm just
newborn
saying,
citizen. That's how that works.
I think we all
so
have
my
American
husband-
parents here, Tolly.
But no,
My
no,
husband-
people make this. No, okay, let me speak as like someone who's not born here, also someone of color from a territory. As a Samoan native, you don't have the same American citizenship. You cannot vote for commander in chief. You're not really a citizen. You're I forget what the term is, but like a national. That's what it is. You're an American national, but you're not actually an American citizen. Now, I was born in Italy to two soldiers. My mom was born in Samoa, so she's an American national. My dad was born in America, in Oakland, California. He is fully American. The way you become a natural born citizen is, of course, being born on U.S. soil. But then you also have the birthright of having a U.S. parent, especially when they are serving in a delicate.
No, is it one or two?
You
I'm not
only need
sure on
one.
that.
You only need
You
at
only need
least
one?
one
Okay.
who's in a foreign country on official business. It doesn't have to be on a military base that you are born, but it has to
I
be
didn't
like
know
soldiers.
that, though. I didn't know
That's
they had to
literally
be
how
on
it
official
works.
business. I thought
Yeah.
literally as long as you had an American parent.
No, those
Yeah, but
parents
bingo.
cannot be on vacation. It has to be they are stationed there.
That's
They're
shitty.
doing business with the
That's
embassy.
something that
something
needs
like
to be
that.
fixed, too.
And some people that are
But
born
that's the
on
reality
foreign
of it.
soil can have dual citizenship too. I know a guy that
With
lives
Italy
in Missouri
as
right
well.
now.
Mm-hmm.
he was born on an Air Force base in England, so he has a British citizenship and an American citizenship. So it just depends on where you're born and what their laws are. You know, some countries allow you to have two.
Italy's one of those. So Italy, Samoa, and America. It's fun.
I think we got a new star of the show. I'm just saying. The kids really are the stars of
The reason
this
I
show.
wanted to clarify this is because frequently when we're looking at people of color running for the presidency, people try to attack their birthright. But a birthright is if your parents are military, any kind of government office, and you are born on other soil and they have been there conducting business while they're there, even if they're on vacation and they begin conducting business, you can retain your birthright. And a lot of people have this misconception about how you can be a natural born citizen, especially in regard to like if you're born outside of the US. But being born outside of the US doesn't discount you as an American born citizen. And people have this common misconception. So I just want to straighten that out.
Okay, y'all. So, just saying, John McCain ain't a traitor. Shame on you two on the right over there. Shame on you. That hurts my heart. That hurts my damn military heart.
It hurts your heart. I am like when the first time.
I just really want to clear that up.
The first time I heard it, I didn't want to believe it either. But
you believe John McCain was a traitor, Anthony?
I never brought up anything about him being a traitor. I didn't know.
For real though, I am gonna have to do some references on that. I'm interested in that for real, Shiloh. So send me some information on it.
I'm gonna tell you now. They're hard to find.
Really?
They're hard to find because
I've never seen this before. You're the first person that's ever brought this up to me. So that's interesting.
I've never heard that. I mean, for anybody to say that John McCain is an actual traitor, man, that's fucking sad. Especially
well, that
with
hurts
his
me,
career,
but
with
at
his
the same
military
time, I want to
career,
see what their
what he did in
argument
Congress.
is.
I mean, this guy ran for president, and all you conservatives fucking voted for his ass. I voted for John McCain. Okay,
I didn't.
I did not know that.
Most of you conservatives did though, and so did I, because I was conservative back then. Okay,
I did not know that.
He was a fucking war hero. He was the last conservative I ever voted for.
I thought Obama was. I thought you voted for Obama.
But to go into this thing, you know, he did all these good things. There's no possibility ever that he could have done a bad thing. That's just.
I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong.
It's ridiculous.
It's the military,
a fucking
though.
traitor.
At the end of the day, it's the military. We get asked to do fucked up things every single day. Let's be honest
you get asked to.
No, I'm sorry. That asked was the wrong word. We get ordered to do fucked up things every single day.
You also have the ability to stand against it.
Yeah, and you could be murdered too.
Well, you can.
Ask Pat Tillman.
UCMJ says that you
Pat
can.
Tillman.
But also, let's be realistic in what happens to you, even if you disobey an unlawful order. I am the daughter of veterans, and my husband's a veteran, so I have read the UCMJ cover to cover. Technically, yes, you have the obligation to disobey an unlawful order, but my dad would tell me stories all the time of soldiers who would do that, and then they would have pillow parties at night and beat their ass with bricks inside pillowcases.
Or you get Hillary Clinton.
Like
Hillary Clinton, I love that.
So yes.
Yeah,
technically that is true, but they'll also beat you within an inch of your life. They'll make your life a living hell. Yep. They'll do everything they can to have you removed and dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, and that is, and I'm not saying that those aren't serious consequences. I'm not saying that there aren't serious consequences for standing against what you determine to be an unlawful order. But at the end of the day, can you live with yourself if you follow it? Or are you willing to take the beatings? Are you willing to take the discharge and everything that comes with it? Or are you willing to get out of the military as soon as you have a chance?
The indoctrination at a certain point, though.
The indoctrination.
And not just the indoctrination. But
I mean, let's be honest. Everybody will sit here and tell you that the military builds you up and tears you down and rebuilds you in their own image.
There is, okay, I'm living.
Come on now.
Okay, I'm living in a house full of military personnel. I'm married to an airman. I spend a lot of my time with other military personnel that I don't live with, that are our friends. And I will tell you right now that I don't know what the military was like when you were in it, Mike. I don't know what it was like when any of the rest of you were in it. I don't know about your parents, Fox. I don't know about your veteran husband. But the airmen that I live with and that I'm friends with, the military does not build them up. All it does is tear them down until they reach a level where they can also tear other airmen down.
Damn, Shiloh! I want to drink more.
Do you really hate the military that much?
I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
It's very interesting conversation for me. So, I mean, I'll jump in even if I won't agree with this one because she's quite opinionated.
That's asinine.
No, that's fine.
No.
He said
I also want to point out that if you catch a dishonorable discharge, you are legally banned from being able to get a job with anyone who has a contract with the military. That's even McDonald's. And I think it's really yes, in a perfect world, we would have military personnel doing the just thing and disobeying unlawful orders and standing up for what's right.
Need military.
Yes, that's objectively true. I'm just saying, but I'm also it's really hard, and I'm a radical leftist, and I even have this argument with other leftists. It is really hard for me, even as someone who doesn't have children or no one really depends on me. It's really hard for me to sit here and condemn people who that is how they feed their families. That is how they are able to pay their bills. And especially when we talk about how the military goes to public schools and recruits actively, and they primarily target poor communities. It's just really hard for me to sit and condemn someone for doing what they have to do to survive.
True.
I'm kind of on the fence as far as that goes. It is probably the least leftist thing about me is kind of how I am in regards to that. I don't yes, I agree. If you see someone doing something they shouldn't be doing, be like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to shoot that 5-year-old child. But also, one of my really close friends is in the National Guard, and she's even told me, she's like, she's told me about, as much as she can tell because classified information, but about.
Which you know her too, Mike.
Yeah, you probably.
He's blessed. He's blessed to know this person. I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's told me there was a situation when she was deployed to Kuwait where she had 3 targets and 2 of them she killed and 1 of them she shot in the arm, and she almost got discharged for shooting them in the arm. And it was a child.
You kind of hit the nail on the head there, though. You talk about being willing to go through those extra steps and go through a dishonorable discharge and a Article 15 under the UCMJ. But these are things that literally can ruin your life, period. Almost as bad as a felony can ruin your life.
Correct.
And here's the thing.
I would say she made a morally correct choice. But I can understand how it she didn't give me a lot of details about what happened to her after, but I got the impression that it could have gone unbelievably badly for her, up to including her not coming home alive. So I'm not going to condemn people who do what they have to do to put food in their kids' mouths or put a roof over their kids' heads or make sure that their kids' education is taken care of.
Here's the thing, though, which I find really interesting. In all of the conversation so far, people who don't stand up for their beliefs, who don't stand against unlawful orders, I haven't condemned them. The only person that I've condemned or even come close to it is calling John McCain a traitor. That's it.
Well,
and yet you guys are using the word condemn.
I'm not saying you've condemned anyone. I'm just saying, me personally.
Right.
It's really hard for me to, I guess, admonish, say bad things about. Insert any anything from the thesaurus here to fill in that blank. It's just hard for me to do that.
There's only one website out there that actually says what you claim there. And,
which one?
It's adrenogate.wordpress.com. This is a straight up conspiracy theory.
Actually.
This is like Breitbart. It's total bullshit. Everything about it is
That's
bullshit.
not even the website that I got information
that's what
from.
I'm
So that
looking at,
can't be
and it's
the only one that's got
it is
information
a
up there.
fucking conspiracy theory. There is no truth to it whatsoever. You should really look at your sources. If that's not
I
in the
have been, and my sources
Did
are
Fox
not the
News say
same
it?
ones you're looking at,
because
Sean.
what they're saying is that he was executed. Okay, that's why he was done that way. This dude died of cancer. Okay, it's bullshit.
Yeah, he did die of cancer.
Okay,
Haven't
well,
disagreed with
yeah,
that
these
at
other
all.
sites, all these other sites are saying he was executed.
You just
for being
said
a
there's
traitor.
only one, Sean.
That one right
So
there.
what is it? There's only one, or
Oh,
there's a bunch of them? Which
I'll
one?
find some more. I'll find some more.
You do that.
Ow, 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 ow.
What was that, Holly?
I had to move my gout foot to be more comfortable.
Oh crap! I was talking on mute.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next
More
topic. And I
cherry juice,
literally
honey, more
heard
cherry
him.
juice.
I literally heard him say this with my own 2 ears. To be fair, this past week, whenever he urged his supporters to test the system in North Carolina by voting twice. Here we go.
On your ballots, if you get the unsolicited ballots, send it in and then go make sure it counted. And if it doesn't tabulate, you vote. You just vote. And then if they tabulate it very late, which they shouldn't be doing, they'll see you voted and so it won't count. So send it in early and then go and vote. And if it's not tabulated, you vote. And the vote is going to count. You can't let them take your vote away. These people are playing dirty politics. Dirty politics. So if you have an absentee ballot, or as I call it, a solicited ballot, you send it in. But I would check it in any event. I would go and follow it and go vote. And everybody here wants to vote. We vote.
So, urging supporters to vote twice in this election.
No.
That
You
is.
gotta listen to the whole thing. Again, you're taking words out of context.
Well, I was
go
asking
for
a
it.
simple question. I really legitimately thought that if you vote twice, that's a felony.
Here's the thing,
that
Holly.
was a real question.
No,
He's
here's the
telling
thing,
people to
Holly.
vote twice.
If you vote twice and you use fraud to do so, then yes, that's a felony. However,
But what did he tell them to do?
However, Mike, what he's telling them to do, going and voting twice, and I'm saying this as somebody who sends in absentee ballots because I'm in Arkansas, but I'm a resident of Colorado because of the military. You literally cannot vote twice using your voter registration number. If I send in my absentee ballot and they receive it, and then I end up back in Colorado, so I go to the polls and say, hey, I want to vote. And I give them my voter registration number. They're like, oh, we received, one of two things will happen. One, they'll say, oh, we actually already received your absentee ballot. You can't vote again unless you want to invalidate your absentee ballot, your mail-in ballot, which I can say, oh, you got it. Okay, cool, keep it. Or, oh, yes, I would like to invalidate that because I think I made a mistake and I want to vote differently. The other scenario is they have not yet received my absentee ballot, and I say, I would like to cast my vote. Here's my voter registration number. I go in and I vote, and then my vote is counted, and when my absentee ballot comes in with the same voter registration number, it's like, oh, this is invalid because this person already voted. This is the whole point of voter registration. You literally
but he's not explaining that. He's telling people to do it.
Unless you're using fraud.
I would agree with both of you in that in those statements. Yes, but voter laws, we can all agree, differ from state to state. They tabulate things differently. It's different from state to state. We actually need a fucking organized 50 statewide, here's how you fucking do it, in my opinion.
As far as how you get your ballot, yes, mail, email, whether you have to go in, whether you need a reason to get an absentee ballot.
Wait, hold on. I need to move someplace where I can email ballots.
Getting an absentee ballot, you are required to request it. Part of the problem with just mail-in ballots for everybody is they can go to anybody. Like, Tali can attest to this. When she and I were working at the insurance agency, one of the lists that they say we get our information from is the Social Security office. That's how we know people are turning 65. That's how we know that they're getting ready to go on to Medicare. But you go and you visit these addresses that they give you, and at least a third of them are incorrect. So you send a mail-in ballot to every person on your list, it's not necessarily going to the right people. So it gets sent to, Jill. It gets sent to Jill Smith, but John Brown actually gets it. And John Brown sees an opportunity to be like, oh, hey, I can vote twice now. So he sends it in. And then Jill Smith is like, hey, I never got my ballot. She goes in, this is my voter registration number, which every state requires you to register to vote. And you say, hey, this is my voter registration number. I'd like to vote. Oh, well, Miss Smith, you already sent in your ballot. No, I didn't. Well, it says right here you've already voted. I can't let you vote again unless you would like to invalidate that ballot. And then Miss Smith says, yes, please invalidate that ballot. I would like to vote because I don't remember sending it in. Whether she sent it in or whether somebody else took her ballot and sent it in, or whether, and it could be even a family member.
Every time I've voted here in the state of Arkansas, I've never been asked for a number. I've always been asked, hey, is this your name? Is this your address? Cool, here you go.
Same.
And that's supposed,
and that may be because I'm voting earlier.
That's supposed to be matched up with your voter registration number.
I will say, when my husband was stationed in Washington, we lived, and there's some military people here. We lived in Kitsap County, so you say your husband's an airman, so his area would have been Tacoma. We lived about 45 minutes north of that in Silverdale. So I experienced mail-in voting for the first time in Washington because they do it like, I guess they just do it like it's the thing to do, because when I went and registered when I got my Washington ID, I never went to the polls. I think the first election I voted in was in 2012, but they just sent me ballots without me even asking in Washington.
I think there's 9 states. I think there's 9 states that do mail-in voting as a matter of course.
And I don't know enough about Washington State to know whether or not like their voter fraud data or whatever. But I'll say, like, just as someone who at the time was working 14-hour days at the Youth and Teen Center on base, and my husband was a nuke, so he was the first one on the boat and the last one off, and it just was not feasible for us to go to polls. It was awesome.
Which is fair.
I think about voter suppression, and I think about where polling places are being closed in non-affluent neighborhoods, and it's hard for people who work. In my opinion, Election Day should be a national holiday and no one should have to work, period.
I would agree with that, but to be fair, Fox,
I would agree with that.
The president isn't saying that things like absentees are bad. He's saying that just strictly mail-in ballots are bad.
Thing.
Well, but that's what
I
Washington
agree
did
they
with
are
mail-in
the
ballots.
same,
They weren't
but-
absentee ballots. They were sending me
He's
ballots
using
without
double
me asking
speak.
for
If they're
ballots.
willing
Yeah,
in.
that's how Hawaii does it. They do a caucus, or you can do like a mail-in vote.
Yeah,
Like,
Washington didn't
communities.
even ask me. They were just like, here's your local ballot. Here are the issues. And then I had to check off, and then I put it in a sealed envelope. And it says on the envelope that they won't even count it if the envelope looks tampered with. Now, with everything going on with the post office right now, I don't know that I necessarily would trust mail-in voting simply because of everything going on with the post office right now.
With what?
But I don't know what the solution is, because also, like, I want as many people to vote as possible and vote in a safe way. Like, regardless of what you're voting for, like, I want people to be able to vote safely. I want people to be able to vote, period. So I'm not sure.
Well,
like,
yeah,
I'm not
everyone
sure
who
what the
can
solution
should be able to
is.
vote.
The
fuck it, at
fact
this
that
point,
election day
just
isn't a
text
national
people a
holiday is
ballot.
criminal.
Text people a ballot.
Honestly, people have their fucking phones more than they. Honestly, there's an old joke, and I think it was Gabriel Iglesias made this joke about people want to vote more for American Idol than they do for fucking president, and it's true.
Well,
And it's
yeah,
sad,
because
and
people
I
feel like
You
swear
don't
to
have
can't
to register
actually-
to vote for American Idol.
I know, but I
It's
swear
all
to God, you
process.
would have so much more turnout
And
if
I-
you
like
just
one
put them
more
on
step,
Fox
No,
every
no, no.
Wednesday.
I say that like you don't have to register for American Idol. Yes, I say that jokingly, but I think a lot of the issue with people not voting is that you do have to register, and I feel like since it's a
Jury
basic
duty.
right, we already have social security numbers. Why do we need special voting numbers? Like, there's just
Right.
That is true.
I don't
I think
understand.
it's perfectly logical that you have to go register to vote because it should
I
be
don't,
something.
because
it
I've
should
been the
be
victim of
something that
voter
you take
suppression. I've been told you
seriously.
can't register to
Well,
vote.
do you
while
agree
I'm-
with voter ID laws?
I do. I think you should
Why?
have an ID
it's
to vote.
It's buying a vote. That's
No,
unconstitutional.
How is it buying a vote?
You're making someone get an ID.
Look, my
They have to
point-
pay money for it.
My point as someone
Okay?
that's actually dealt with
And
voter
you're not supposed to
suppression
do that. That's
is that it does
unconstitutional.
exist.
Okay,
and
everyone should
it shouldn't
already
be that
have
difficult.
some sort of ID, whether it's a social security card, whether it's a driver's license,
They'll only
Yeah.
take
whether
photo
it's a
ID.
You're
school
only
requiring
take
it
photo
though
ID.
with the voter
You
ID
should-
law, and that's
And you can't get those for
unconstitutional.
free. Like, you have
Like
to pay
taxes
for
are
a photo ID.
unconstitutional?
Like, you have
What?
to pay for a photo ID, and if you can't vote without a photo ID,
You're buying
paying
your
for
vote.
a vote.
Yes.
I think if you don't have the $30 to pay for your driver's license, then yeah,
If
that's
I have a driver's
problem.
license, why do
That's
I
a
need to
problem,
What
but
if
If
you're
I
you're
gonna
have a
keep you from
driver's
voting for
license,
president?
why do I
Poor
need a
people
separate
shouldn't
voter
be able to
ID?
vote.
What if you're
No,
disabled?
that's
Like-
what I'm saying.
Well, the funny thing
I'm not
is
saying
nobody
you need- I'm not
complains
saying
about
you should
having to
need a
have that
separate
ID for
ID.
beer or
But that's my
cigarette.
point. If you guys
Hold
would
on.
Plenty do.
listen, I'm literally saying every time I get my ID, and I know for damn sure I should be able to register, right? I've
Yeah.
literally been told in Arkansas, all but one time I've had gotten a new ID that no, you cannot register here. That is voter suppression. I have the money to buy my ID, but I'm actively being told you cannot register at the fucking DMV. That's illegal.
Okay. Let me ask you guys
I
this because
register every
I feel
time I
like
renew my
there's a
ID.
little
but
bit
that's
of
my
a
point. Like
no,
voter
I feel like
suppression
there's a little bit of a
and
disconnect here, and I have a genuine question for Arkansas because I do not know. Are you required to have a separate ID besides your driver's license to register to vote?
no.
I don't believe so.
If you
No,
can't
ma'am.
get a driver's license, then yes.
If you cannot
Well,
get
yeah,
a
you
If
can
you
show
can't get a
a
driver's
state
license-
issued
If
or
you
need
government
one,
issued
one
ID.
to get a driver's license,
The
then you need a different
the
one.
problem
But
is
if you
that
get a driver's license, you don't need something separate.
Right.
correct. You need a
Okay.
state issued photo ID or government issued. It can be. I've
driver's
done it with my
license or just
military
an
ID
ID?
before.
or a military
Okay.
ID.
So it
Um,
makes sense that the DMV wouldn't be able to register you to vote because it's the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's not the department.
I've literally been registered while getting my ID before. Brooklyn was just, or sorry, Fox was just talking about how she got registered while getting her ID. Please, the other three men who are from Arkansas in this, can you tell me if you were able to register while getting your ID?
Seems like I registered.
I
when
think I
ID.
remember they asked me. Yeah.
Your driver's
So
license.
in
Now,
Arkansas,
look, this is what
the
I'm saying. They
DMV
didn't want
and
to
the
ask
revenue
me.
office are combined. That's why,
But-
because
but-
it's also
yeah,
the
it's
tax
revenue.
office. Right.
But when I go to get my ID, and this has happened numerous times, I have to send in my fucking voter registration because they will not let me register. They do not ask me if I want to. I get treated differently literally with my brown hair versus when I had my fucking colorful hair. I am not saying this as an exaggeration. I am literally saying this as like
Well, and I
a
guess
fact,
I guess
a
this
fact
is
of my
another.
experience.
I guess this is another disconnect between West and the South, because
It's just
I've no, and I know you're saying voter suppression. I know you're saying because you're a woman of color or a person of color, but
I don't think it's necessarily
out in
a woman or a
Colorado,
person
out
of
in
color.
Utah, out in both of them, I was not allowed, like, because I've gotten IDs in both of those states. I had to register separately. Like, I could not register to vote when I got my ID at the DMV because Colorado and Utah both, the DMV is not, we don't have, like, it was the weirdest thing to me. going
Is
to
it separate than the
office
revenue
for the first time here, and it's more than just
out west.
Yeah.
like out west,
Arkansas's a little
you
bit more
have
streamlined.
I was just agreeing
and then
with
you have
Brooklyn
everything
on voter
else.
suppression being a very real issue, and that when we talk about buying an ID, I can agree you need an ID, but once you have your state issued ID, why do we need to register multiple times?
And I would say,
Once you have your state issued ID, you should be able to use your state issued ID to register to vote.
I think that
Right, but what Tolly's
But my
saying is she
point
doesn't think there should be two separate registration
I
processes.
think there should be.
I don't think.
I mean, I can see the point, though. Hold on, I can see the point.
No.
You can get your driver's license at 16. You shouldn't necessarily a driver. I can see the point there.
DMV and a separate revenue office. They are one thing, so you should be able to do all these things in one place.
And that's where your different
It
states'
should be
voting
kind of like a
laws
checklist.
But
I agree
that's my
there.
point is, I've literally actively experienced suppression. Literally, the difference between having my natural dark hair and when I bleach my hair and have the funky colors everyone's seen.
Right.
Literally, have been treated different. The one time I was able to register, my hair looked like this. I look normal. I speak great English. But literally, when I've gone in with my colorful
You speak
hair,
beautiful English, Tolly.
I'm just playing. I love you,
but-
Tolly.
my English is all right.
But you don't
but
talk
this is
like
something I've
this, and that's why they thought you
actively
talk funny.
And my only point is, because I've actively experienced this suppression, why do we need 3 different forms of ID in our country? Our social security, our fucking driver's license, and a voter
Well,
registration.
and see, that's
just to vote?
crazy
That's
to me that
stupid.
you
It's a
that you
natural
had to
right.
go through that because
It's a natural right.
I've never experienced that situation, even living in the state of Arkansas.
Ross was
Literally,
50.
it's something I've always gotten from a postal service.
just like
Ross
gender
was
marriage.
literally with
No,
me
they're
the last
just
time I
trying
got
to
my ID
suppress the
replaced,
vote.
and I was waiting for her to ask me if I was registered vote or need to. She didn't. So before we were done, before I got in front of the camera, I said, I also want to register to vote. She said, you can't do that here. Yes, I
would
fucking can. It's the
say-
revenue office. It's the one in Conway,
Right.
Brooklyn, knows, or
Do you know what city it was in?
Oh, Tolly.
I'm not good at this.
Tolly.
My tongue
Manicus,
moves too fast. I'm
Manicus,
sorry.
Manic, you've been kind of quiet on this issue.
Not
Go
good
ahead.
at this. I'm so sorry.
I was just saying that nobody seems to complain whenever they have to show their ID for beer or cigarettes.
There's
Oh,
really,
I'm
I
not
mean,
saying-
I've seen
Wait,
that.
back up. I'm sorry. What did you just say?
Nobody seems to complain when they have to show their ID for beer or cigarettes.
I've seen
that's
that.
true.
Working at a
They
gas
do.
station, I have had people
I
getting
like
mad.
him.
As a bartender,
You also
as a
don't
bartender,
have,
I've been
a
cussed out by many
constitutional
folks. already.
guarantee to have like the Constitution and like the laws of our nation don't say that every single adult like is able, like you have stipulations on whether you can buy tobacco or alcohol. Like the age isn't 18 for one. For two,
Oh yeah, it's
like,
21 now.
yeah, it is. I forgot that.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You have dry counties versus wet counties, and like voting for the people that literally make the laws of our nation is a hell of a lot different than like going and getting a case of beer. Like
That's true
that's
too.
a whole lot different. A. B. Voting is not gonna like give you liver failure or lung cancer. Like
To be fair,
like,
I'm a
no,
vapor
no,
and I
no,
say
no,
voting
no,
is
no,
more
no,
important.
lot quicker than you would expect it to.
People want
Like-
to complain about having
Nah.
to get an ID to go vote. We can't afford it. You're trying to suppress our vote by making us buy this.
You're not
But
supposed to
those
buy a
same
vote, though.
people
They're just
will
supposed to go
happily
by your
show their
address.
ID in order to get that case of beer.
You are not supposed to cause American citizens to buy a vote. When you have them have an ID, you make them pay a fee. That's buying a vote. That's unconstitutional.
I would
Hey,
also
if it
say
makes
that you
sure
don't
that
have
we
to
don't
have
have a
an
bunch of
ID to
people
drink.
voting,
You
So
just have
basically
to
what
have
you're
an
saying
ID to
is
purchase
fuck the
alcohol.
Constitution
Which are
as
two
long as
different
it
things.
goes with your ideology.
Right, and you've
Like-
got your points where you say fuck the Constitution when it goes with your ideology.
Actually, I don't
I
do
mean,
that.
I'm just gonna say fuck the Constitution because it was written by like old ass white men that had no people
no,
in power or women
Here
settling in on
we
it.
go.
We're going down a rabbit hole. We're going down a rabbit hole,
I'm
people.
gonna say fuck the
Okay,
Constitution.
Ridiculous.
At the end
But
of
when
the
you're
day,
talking
at the end of
about
the day,
voting, when you're talking about voting, when you're talking about something that is within the system of the Constitution, if you are going to say that this is what we're going to follow, regardless of whether I think it's bullshit or not, this is the system that we have. You have to follow the fucking system that you have put into place yourself. So when you say,
but at the same time, the country has changed so much. We have so many illegal immigrants in the country that it makes sense that
How many are lining up to vote, though? Let's be honest, because 90% of them are scared they're going to get grabbed by IRS.
Hey, I'm an actual citizen that I get to vote.
Tell us how many they
Well,
paid.
here's my thing, because I don't think that I would be against having a voter ID if those identifications were free.
How many
if you
actual
could go
cases?
and produce
Governments don't run for free. No government runs for free.
So we're going to buy votes. Like, that's the only alternative, is that you either pay money in order to be allowed to vote.
If it was a yearly fee, it's like, yeah, you're going to pay every year to renew your ID. You're going to pay every year to say that I have the right to vote. Then I could say, yes, you're buying votes. But guess what?
You're doing it every 4.
$30 to
pay every 4 years, just like you vote every 4
printing
years.
my ID. This is the cost to pay the employee who's helping me get my ID. I don't think $30 is too much to say.
It
please.
is.
On the other hand, the tax money that
when you're
pays for the
supposed to break
DMV,
the
the revenue
Constitution,
offices,
it is
isn't that
too
just
much.
our
There's not
tax money?
enough. There's not
Are we
enough.
already paying for it?
Then you don't care about the Constitution.
Are we
I
already
fucking
paying for
care
all
about
this?
the Constitution.
No, you don't. If
Yeah,
you want
don't
people to
tell
buy,
me that I don't
if
care
you
about the
want people to
Constitution.
buy their vote,
But
then
I
you
am
don't care
also
about it.
aware of the reality that our government is trillions of dollars in debt, and taxes will never able
Thanks to Bush
to
and
throw that. No, not
Trump.
thanks to Bush. Thanks to every president ever. Thanks to the
Clinton had a
cost
set
of
of
running the
surplus.
country. So
Clinton had a set of surplus.
who?
I mean, okay, so let's just even if you take away the cost of printing,
Clinton.
even it the way that they do identifications now, those pictures are in the system anyway. Like, you don't even have to really print an identification in order to be able to look up someone's name, look on the computer, and verify that that person is that person. So let's eliminate the cost of printing at all.
So we should run completely digitally, which can be hacked.
Let's just microchip everybody.
So then let's go back to paper ballots. Let's go back to paper ballots.
We
Period.
already run our country digitally. Everything is run digitally.
Everything. Voting machines. Everything is run digitally.
Right, but most of it is also backed up in hard copy. I have an ID. I have a physical ID because I don't trust the system, as it were, to have a completely digital copy of my life. I want to be, if somebody gets in and hacks my information and I go to the bank and I say, hey, my ID got stolen, here's my information, and they're like, well, if your ID got stolen, how do we know you're actually you? I can be like, hey, look, here's my physical ID with my actual picture that I've had for 3 or 4 years because I went in.
Do you agree that we could do microchips and that would solve all the issues right there? Just put it right there in your hand?
No.
I have seen Kingsman. I've seen Kingsman, and I have no interest in going down that road.
I've also seen Kingsman, and I'm not here for it.
I'm not
here for it.
Hold on, y'all. We got a comment here. And I apologize if I butcher your name. Akina says it's statistically proven that laws that enforced voter identification, birth certificate, certification, etc., have caused a lower turnout for poor whites and persons of color, even more so in rural areas. People that don't have a birth certificate for certain reasons, such as not being a birth at a hospital or have a driver's license. So basically saying that it's making it harder for somebody who, wasn't born at a hospital or can't afford it. Once again, we're going back to the same issue with the cost of actually having every 4 years, which coincides with how often you vote.
If you could utilize other forms of identification, like a school ID, because whether it's university or whether it's your high school, because I voted in high school. I turned 18 my senior year of high school, so I voted in high school, and high schools give you a free student ID. Like if there was something other than a state ID you have to pay for or a driver's license you have to pay for, I don't think that I would be against requiring like a physical identification.
It should
But my
be
problem
free.
comes in, $30 doesn't sound a lot to you maybe, but I'll tell you right now, I have negative 500 in my bank account and still have not paid my car bills for this month.
And
we have,
here's the thing.
so should I not be allowed to vote because
Do you
I'm
have
poor?
a driver's license?
I haven't paid for it in a long time. It's actually been expired.
But do you have it? But do you have it?
Yeah, back when my husband was in the military.
What
and
she's
it was
saying
free.
is it's not valid. What
Well,
she's
not
saying is
valid.
it's not valid.
It
So
hasn't
she would
been valid
actually
since
be.
2016.
She would
Expired,
probably
but it
be.
would still count
No,
as
it wouldn't.
a
They would
form
not count
of
it.
ID.
They would not count it if it is
expired,
expired. It
does
is
not
not valid.
Is saying that you're too poor to afford it. I don't buy that because
Well, then
I've
that's-
been.
I did not
That literally
already
just
have an.
proved it, though.
Okay,
I
well,
have not gotten an Arkansas ID because I am too poor to afford it. Because
Her
Arkansas will
license
not
is not
transfer
valid.
my ID.
More than
my
likely.
I have a
But
Washington
how many
State
of you
ID.
guys work
If
in
she
Little
gets
Rock with
ID'd,
poor black
she's
women that
probably
have
not
5
gonna
or
be
6
able to
kids
vote.
that can't afford anything
Correct.
at all? They live in HUD housing. They can't get an ID. They can't do anything. How many of you guys actually work with people like that?
I'm gonna leave. I'm not a part of this, even though I feel like I'm the blackest one in here.
But no, she makes a good point, though. Come November 3rd, Fox isn't going to be able to vote if she's ID'd because she does not have a valid state-issued ID.
I will say the benefit of the Washington ID, which is why I haven't, I guess in reality, I could have begged my friends for money to pay for a new ID, but I just haven't because on my identification in Washington State, as long as your husband is in the military, your ID never expires. So my expiration date doesn't have a date. It just says military.
Okay, good.
So anytime I've been stopped, I've just been like, oh yeah, my husband's on the USS Ohio Gold Crew. He hasn't been since 2015, but no, like cops haven't messed with me. The DMV hasn't messed with me. No one's messed with me because it says military on it, and that's kind of the privilege of it saying military on my ID. But if it had it, like if my license expired, if I had an expired license and tomorrow I was unable to have any type of identification at all, I literally could not afford it. I would not be able to afford it. And my thing is that $30 is nothing to you, but that's a week's worth of groceries to a poor college student. I have been there. I have eaten the 75-cent cup of ramen and literally
so have I.
days
So for you to
without
say that $30 is nothing to me, that's fucking bullshit.
I mean, it's more feasible for you to get $30 than it is for me to get $30.
Is it?
If it's totally okay for you to say that someone should pay $30 nilly-willy for an identification
I
in order
have
to
my
exercise your
priorities.
constitutionally given rights.
I have my priorities, and my $30 the first time I got my ID was a priority. And maybe it works differently out here, but I haven't had to pay again for my ID renewing it since I got it.
You don't have to renew it every 4 years? You don't have an expiration on your ID?
I've got an expiration on it, but I haven't had to pay to have it renewed.
Really?
Every time I've had
What state do you have your ID through? That's cool as hell.
Colorado.
Oh, now that's badass. Yeah, in Arkansas we do.
I was going to say it may be because your husband is military. It may be because your husband is military that you don't have to do that.
Well.
Last time I had it renewed was before I was married.
Huh. Colorado's interesting. And I would be completely down with that once a lifetime driver's license. Bingo bango. But like in Arkansas at least, you have to pay $30 every 4 to 6 years, I think, to renew your driver's license. And if I came in within if I came in,
it's $115 in Washington.
God bless. If I came into a polling place with an expired ID, I wouldn't be able to vote. So that would be an unfortunate consequence. But yeah, every 4 to 6 years we do have to.
So riddle me this.
There's also a difference in an ID and a driver's license.
Do what?
Because you can get an ID at 14 and they're only like $15.
I haven't gotten an ID in forever, so I don't know. But yeah, that's true. It's a good point. But at the same time, I see Sean's point of you shouldn't have to pay the government to be able to get this document that allows you to vote.
Well,
what about something?
I was getting more food at the time, so I didn't hear
Right.
the entire thing about having the Washington ID. But
okay.
from my understanding is you have found a loophole.
Right.
And that's the
Somewhat.
problem with it.
It's a military
When people
situation.
find loopholes for people that are not citizens to start voting.
It's not necessarily a loophole. It's a military ID,
But
so
I'm
it
more
doesn't
concerned
expire.
about like our regular Americans being able to live up to their
it's a
constitution,
loophole
right?
in that my ID doesn't have an expert. I mean, if you were to call like the Washington State DMV, they would say, yeah, her license is expired because it expires 90 days after my husband left the military. But when you scan it, like when the cops scan it or you go to the bar and they scan it, it'll just say no expiration date. And then they look at it and it says military next to the expiration date. And I'll just say, oh, yeah, my husband's a veteran. Or I'll say, oh, yeah, my husband's military or he's Navy. And they literally don't.
And that's interesting. That's on your, it actually says military on your driver's license.
Find loopholes in order to.
I don't have. Actually, yeah, I do. Hold on. I'll block out my face.
But here's the thing. Here's my thing, Antonio. Talking about your everyday American who has the constitutional right to it. Like people try to say we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Our land is ruled by the law of the Constitution. By law of the Constitution, we are all entitled to the right to vote. The right to vote. So
That's
I
cool,
get what
actually.
you're saying
Mine doesn't do that.
about immigrants that aren't legal citizens of the U.S. But I want to go back to talking about legal citizens of the U.S. and the Constitution that we live under that supplies the laws of our land, and why it's so damn hard for an American who's entitled to this birthright to vote. Like that's my hang up.
So literally, this just occurred to
You're
me
not
though.
entitled to
Why
shit in
have?
this country
And I'm
unless
not
you're
sure.
rich.
Hold on, Sean. I'm not sure if this is something that Arkansas does or not. But if we're going to enact a voter ID situation, why can't the government give you a piece of paper with your picture on it where you don't have a driver's license? It's not valid for anything that you have with a driver's license or an ID.
It's called voter
valid,
suppression.
Sean, I'm bringing in an alternate perspective.
At that point, what's the difference between that voter registration and our Social Security? We already have Social Security cards, Social Security numbers, and a separate registration number when we get a driver's license or state
one
ID.
of the things
That's a lot of numbers. That's a lot of registration.
That's true, but I
That's
think one of the
unnecessary.
things that they look at is number one, your address is good, and number two, that you are who you say you are. So same information as what you get on a driver's license,
number,
but just on a piece of
that
paper.
That number belongs to the specific person.
Same information as what you get on a driver's license, but just on a piece of paper. Say voter registration ID.
But the other part of that,
Bingo,
as we
bango.
learned from 9/11, is how many of our rights are we willing to give up for security?
Well, you guys are willing to give up everything. You know, conservatives have been doing that for the last 20 fucking years.
Sean, you're painting with the broad brush again. Shame on you.
Republicans are the ones willing to give up.
Stop painting with the broad brush.
I would say, and I'm going to say this because I draw a very distinct line between liberal and leftist. Those are two totally different schools of thought.
Oh,
yes, they
And
are.
I would say,
Yes.
and I would say
they are
liberals
trust me,
and
Shiloh.
conservatives. I think the center period is willing to give up liberty for the sake of security. So I do not personally think that it's just a
Trust me,
conservative.
Shiloh,
Well,
I'm a Republican.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but I will say that's fair coming from, when the leftists are willing to give up every personal freedom for political correctness and sensitivity.
Those are liberals you're talking about.
Yeah, those are liberals.
No, those are leftists.
No. You don't understand.
Leftists don't give a fuck about political
In
correctness.
Marxism, there is no debate. Okay, there is no debate at all.
You're right. It's all up to the government.
No,
there's
exactly.
no personal
And
freedom
you're talking about
whatsoever.
people that are giving it away. That's not what happens with leftist politics.
Okay, y'all.
Leftist politics are totally based on identity and who can be the biggest victim and who can get
Not
the
necessarily.
most.
That's
Actually,
liberalism.
leftist politics
No,
are all
that's
about like
leftism right
No.
now.
no.
Liberalism. That is
No.
liberalism.
That's literally like
Leftism.
that's literally the definition of liberalism. Liberalism
Yes.
is
Yeah, that's a
highly
liberal left.
individualistic.
If you look at what's
Yeah.
going on in the country right now, far left
Liberal.
people who claim
Those are
leftism,
liberals, though.
those are the
Okay.
no, the
Jake
liberals are
doesn't-
the ones who still
No.
have a modicum of common
No,
sense.
bullshit. You think
Those
you
are
think that
opposite.
fucking John Biden or that Joe
It's the
Biden's a goddamn
opposite.
leftist, and he's a fucking
He's a
centrist.
liberal.
He's
He's a
centrist.
liberal.
He's a centrist at best.
Joe
Yeah.
Biden's an
centrist
early
liberal.
stage dementia patient.
So
I'm
is
a
Well,
God.
goddamn
that's
Marxist.
but like that's
Okay, I would
irrelevant. Like
fucking
we're not
know.
gonna ad hominem. We're talking about like political ideologies and
Political
liberalism.
ideology, sure, but Joe Biden, I'm sorry, Joe Biden is an early stage Alzheimer's patient, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Can you
Look at
actually
his
confirm that?
appearances.
Can you
It's a
confirm that?
definition of
That's
liberal
just a
versus
fucking
left.
bullshit
Like that has not
conspiracy
shit to do
theory.
with anything.
How is that a bullshit conspiracy theory when you can
Can you
look
prove it?
at
Can you
every
prove it?
single?
Do
You're
you
right.
have the medical
I can't say here is
No,
the
I-
doctor telling Joe Biden
then
that
please
he
do that.
has
Please
some
do
sort
that.
of Alzheimer's or dementia. But
Well,
what
until
I
you can
can
do that, you shouldn't
is
say
look
it.
at all of his public appearances, look
Yeah.
at the videos that he's
And I
putting out,
can look
looking
at all
at
the
his
court.
speeches.
I can look at all
and
the
all
court
People
that,
do
and
the
look
same
at
thing
what
with
the
Trump
fuck
every
he's
day.
saying. He
Raping a
has no
13-year-old,
idea
and
unless
you
he's
ignore
reading all
that.
the
You
I need a
keep
vodka.
voting for him.
Even then,
Yo,
he can't tell
yo.
what he's saying.
I
He
need a
doesn't know what
vodka.
he's saying half the time.
We're gonna
And
we're
Trump
gonna
rapes little girls, and that's
Sean.
important. That's
No.
important
Sean.
documentation.
No.
Sean.
As far as
So,
I'm concerned, they both abuse little girls. So
true, very true.
Same. Facts.
With that being said,
Agreed.
we're gonna move on.
goes for both of them.
We're gonna move on. Damn it. We're gonna go on to the boat parades because Antonio's back and Antonio
It wasn't a
participated
parade.
today. So we will. Give me 1 second. Give me
Yeah, I
one
need to
second.
get
I want to
it.
play this video from the unfortunate occurrence this weekend and from Sarah Huckabee today as she spoke on, I think you said Washita?
Yes,
Antonio?
Washington.
Okay, so let's look at these two videos and we'll be right back to talk about these. These are interesting.
It was the talk of social media today, a major boat parade for President Donald Trump, resulting in several boats underwater this afternoon in Travis County. That's according to the sheriff's office there.
The parade kicked off around 11:30 this morning on Lake Travis and lasted for hours. The night team's Jaffney Gray joins us in the studio now with the latest on this incident. Jaffney, it was originally reported that no one was hurt.
That's right, guys. After seeing the video, it's actually shocking. No injuries are reported, let me tell you. In fact, the only distress calls that did come in was for the boats. Thousands of supporters of President Donald Trump flocked to the lake, whether they were getting in the water or not. Despite COVID-19 warnings for the Labor Day weekend, many said that they were just out there to have a good time. But here's where the problems started, with boats varying from a 60-foot yacht to 8-foot fishing boats going in the same direction at different speeds. Rough waters created a choppy path for those participating. The first boat in distress call came 20 minutes into the parade. That was the start of many more calls, with the last one coming in around 2 p.m. The organizer of the event says that she had no idea so many people would show up to celebrate the weekend while supporting President Trump's hopeful re-election.
For me personally, this is about, I'm a mother, and this is about my child's future and what I want that to look like. And this is my way of also stepping up and saying that, yes, I'm going to vote, but I wanted to do more. And this was something that I could do.
As of tonight, the sheriff's office said that they were still sorting out just how many boats went under. They say it is unclear how many calls came in, how many boats sank, and how many were towed. In the studio, Jaffney Gray, KSAT 12 News.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders to the stage.
Do you want me to spray that with alcohol or anything?
Wow. What an incredible voice. What an incredible day. And God bless America. Can you imagine anything better than spending Labor Day out on Lake Washita with the sun shining and 1,000 boats, probably more, all celebrating our country, celebrating our president? I really can. I think this is absolutely spectacular. I'm honored to be here. And I actually got to be with the president just a couple days ago. I was standing in the Oval Office and I told him where I was going to be on Saturday. And he said, Sarah, you make sure you tell the people of Arkansas that I love them, I'm fighting for them, and thank you for their support. So directly from the president, he loves Arkansas. He won this state by a significant margin in 2016, and I think we can do a whole lot better. I've been all over the country with the president. I have never seen enthusiasm for any candidate like we have for this president. And the reason why is because he loves this country. He doesn't apologize for America. In fact, he does the opposite. He says we will protect America, we will preserve America, and we will do everything to fight and protect the greatest country on the face of the planet. By your presence here today, I know Arkansas will do exactly that. We will continue to stand with this president. We will continue to stand for our flag. We will continue to stand for our faith and our freedom. The stakes have never been higher than they are right now in this election. When I was in Washington last week, it looked like a war zone. I can assure you, we do not want the rest of America to look like Washington, D.C. is right now. And if we don't stand up and we don't fight and we don't do everything we can to make sure Donald Trump gets reelected for 4 more years, I can assure you that is what Joe Biden will do to America. We have the most beautiful, most patriotic, most incredible country. On November 3rd, let's make sure we fight for it. Let's make sure we vote for Donald Trump. Let's make sure we vote for Republicans up and down the ticket. And let's continue to make America great again. Thank you so much. Let's get out. Let's have a great day. And let's enjoy living in the greatest country on the face of the planet. Go Trump 2020. Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's start out here. We'll start out here. Did that sound like a political speech to anybody else? Maybe somebody that's running for governor in a few years? Yeah.
Right there.
I'm just saying, she won't admit it, but she's running for governor. No, I have no problem with the boat parades in theory. The only thing that I didn't see in there was, I didn't see any masks. Obviously, they're in the case like there was in Texas.
Mike.
What?
They were all outside on boats.
They really was, but they were tied in there. So that's the only thing that if I had to nitpick, I wanted to see. But it is an unfortunate situation what happened. I'm not going to blame that on the fact that they were there. That's ridiculous. But definitely interesting to see the different ways that that these rallies are evolving and becoming, now they're doing boat parades for Trump and things like that rather than packing into an arena and things like that. But Manic, you said you were out there. Tell me a little bit about your experience today.
We went out yesterday, actually. It wasn't today. But yeah, it was just nice to get out, get the family on the boat. Just kind of cruised around a little bit, and there was a lot of Trump support. And that's the funny thing. It wasn't just the boats. I was noticing a lot of the docks just had Trump flags on.
Well, and like I said, I can't knock by any stretch of the imagination you doing that. Like I said, the only unfortunate occurrence was what happened in Texas with these people, losing their property. But like you said, most of them probably had insurance on their boats, so hopefully they got that taken care of.
People that don't understand how water works. When you get that many
That's true. I would agree there because it was the waves by the bigger boats that caused the smaller boats to sink, right? Thought so. But no, going back to what Sarah said, that sounded like a complete, hey, vote for me in 2022. I'm just saying. That sounded like a complete gubernatorial run. We'll start with you, Fox. Go ahead.
I honestly just don't have an opinion.
You have anything against the boat parades or anything?
Like having a boat parade in general?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no. Like in general, like having a boat parade, no. I do think that I saw something that someone had shared on Twitter that I thought was a ironic in a very sad way parallel. We're talking, you mentioned that it was the larger boats causing the waves for the smaller boats to sink, and I saw someone say on Twitter that's just, but they're all there like trying to show solidarity for the same thing, but the bigger boats. So in this allegory, it was the rich were literally causing the smaller boats, aka those not as rich, to sink. Meanwhile, those people sinking are probably still going to identify with the same ideology as the people that just caused them to sink.
I saw that, but I think that's reading a little too far into it.
I get what you're saying.
It gave me a giggle, but literally aside from that, I don't have much of an opinion. Like, I mean, I guess.
As someone that's descended from Voyagers, I can honestly say it is my opinion that is the fault of those little boats, not knowing how to navigate choppy. I get what you're saying. It gave you a little giggle. Totally, like we all have this where we can look at something like factually and objectively and say, well, technically that's incorrect, but it gives you a giggle because it supports it supports like your personal like morality and where your compass goes.
Right.
That's totally fair. I would have gotten a giggle out of that too.
Yeah.
But in the reality of it, man, why do you have a boat if you can't drive it?
Oh my God, so true. I'm sitting there looking at this boat with water in it, and I'm like, bruh, come on now.
They're expensive.
Right. But then again, I've always heard that a boat is just money you throw, endless pit in the water that you throw money into.
Yeah.
And you only use it well, I guess in Arkansas you would use it like half the year at least.
Yeah.
But in a state where we have real seasons, you would only use it for like a quarter of the year regardless. So
Right.
I can agree with that.
Oh my God, hold on.
We're agreeing.
Timestamp, we're agreeing.
Oh, please. There's been a couple times tonight that we've agreed.
8:27. We've
We're
reached a
actually
general
smiling on this.
consensus
Hold on,
about the boat parade.
we're smiling here. What is
well,
this?
because I think like there's nothing like.
Well, it's because Sean isn't around.
I know, right? That's what it is.
I don't have to
Sean's the
like
devil.
what they're rallying.
Sean's
I
the
don't
devil.
like.
I can go. Okay, you know what? Let's argue. Let's argue about how all those boats being in the lake probably damage the ecosystem of. I mean, we could do that if you want to do that. It's probably true. I just
in COVID world,
that's not my sword.
This,
like I said, honestly,
Mike wanting
in
them to
COVID
wear masks on their boat while they're flying with the wind blowing.
In COVID world though, this makes sense as a evolution of a rally. You know, it's better to see this than
I would
in
hate a
Tulsa
Biden
in an
rally
arena.
as much as a Trump rally, but if they're on boats, I'm gonna be like, hey, good looking out.
Well, and
learn how to drive it.
I would much prefer that than like everyone like those thousands of people packed at the Capitol stacking on top of each other and
right.
So I mean, as long as like you can't get much more as long as the people. I mean, and the reality is it probably wasn't this way, but if the people on those boats are people that usually live in your house that you spend your day to day with, even putting a boat next to another boat, you're still going to be 6 feet away from the next person on the other boat.
I thought about
so it's
that
not
as
like
I
it's
was
that
saying
big of
it.
an
I was
issue.
like, you know what? They actually are pretty distanced. I thought about it as I was saying it.
Assuming like the people on the boat, I assume, know each other and are exposed to each other's germs regularly. I assume.
They're pretty cool.
There might be, some people having fun, supporting the sex workers in Arkansas. I have no problem with that. Take them out on a boat, show them a good time.
I love you, Tolly.
I mean, I agree. Oh yeah.
Sex workers deserve a nice time too.
Go get you someone really nice from the Peppermint Hippo.
The Peppermint Hippo, is that real?
Time. It's the new strip club. I only know about it because it's a hippo. It's a hippo.
Oh my God! They called it the Peppermint Hippo. Whoever is their marketing team is
the new name. I like so much better.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. My uncle used to
work there. Wait, that's the new name.
there.
What was the old name?
Visions. Peppermint Hippo's so much better. I want a Peppermint Hippo.
Peppermint Hippo is hilarious. What do you do?
I need
work
little
at the
mints shaped
Peppermint
like-
Hippo.
Oh, do they
Sounds
have
like a
mint
bakery.
shaped like
Right?
hippos?
It kind of
need
does sound like a
peppermint shaped like
bakery.
hippos.
It really does. That's awesome. Sean, you
Those
kind
are
of
so
threw up.
sweet.
You kind of threw up when I sent you the video of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, so I'll let you go off for a second on that stuff. We've all been in agreement that these boat parades aren't terrible, and they're actually kind of smart evolution of rallies during COVID.
I mean, it
time.
is.
Are they drinking?
It is what it is. I'm
You don't
not
think so?
saying that it's stupid or anything. I mean, that's what people want to do, and if you're out on a boat or whatever, that's cool. My whole thing as far as sending the little vomit thing to you was because Sarah Huckabee was actually, doing her little political campaign to run for governor, which is never gonna happen in Arkansas.
You don't think
because,
so?
No, Arkansans will never vote for a woman to be governor. It's just not gonna happen. There's too
Man,
much
Hispanic, are
misogyny
you
in
going to
this.
vote for Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
She runs. I definitely would.
I guarantee you, if you put an R next to anybody's name in this
guarantee
state,
you that if the Democrats put up one male against either Huckabee or Rutledge, that Democrat will win.
I'm willing to bet you a six-pack right now.
I got it right there.
Right now,
think-
2022.
There you go.
I don't know that I agree.
I completely, as
Arkansans
long as you put
that's
an R
hard.
next to
hate
somebody's
women
name,
more
I
than
don't
they
think
do
so.
minorities.
I don't
more than they
know.
do. Yeah, they really do.
I don't know.
Wow.
I think I don't think so. I really don't think so because, and this is
You're
coming
not
from,
a native Arkansan. You don't understand
I
how
am a
much.
native
Sean,
Arkansan.
you be, stop it. Let
I
people
was born
finish.
I was born and raised in Arkansas. I graduated from Cabot High School. I am a native Arkansan.
Oh well,
is.
you're from
I can
Cabot.
verify.
Okay, so yeah, that's
Now
fantasy
listen.
land
Oh,
over
so
there.
now
When you actually look at the
opinions
rest of the state, yeah, when you look at the
Now
rest of the
it's
state, they all hate
I
women
was
in this
born-
fucking state.
Oh, Lord.
bullshit.
I wouldn't say that though. Like, and
I
for
will.
the same reasons.
I'll
For the
say it
same
because
reasons.
I talk to men everywhere, and I ask them these questions. Why wouldn't they vote for a woman in this country? Or why would they vote for a woman? And it's
You've
because
talked to
they don't
every
feel.
single man
Because
in Arkansas. Nah.
I have
I
talked
think-
to thousands of men in this
I
state
think
about this
the-
subject, and men do
Mhm.
not like women to be in office. They don't
They-
want them there.
But they hate communists more. And
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
there's this thing now where everyone who's left is a communist, and communism's bad, even though people don't understand what. They're saying to make it communist.
Communism as an
Oh.
actual governmental system is bad.
No, it's not.
Is.
Regardless,
Yeah, it
like
is.
that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that you have so much going on right now where it's like the left and ANTIFA and the communists and the anarchists. Like, I think that is more of a concern. And I, like, from what I have personally seen, is this ideological threat of destroying America. I think that it would be close, but I do think I think that conservatives would rather vote for a Republican female than a Democratic male.
I completely agree.
Not
I
in
think
this
it's
state.
going to be, honest to God, I think it's
100%.
going to be a
You are
long
100%
time
right,
before
Fox.
we see.
Nope.
I think it'll be a long time before we see a Democrat in the governor's occupy the
Most
governor's mansion.
women in this state won't vote for a fucking woman.
I think it would be different
Wow.
if your only option,
you're wrong,
was
Sean.
a
think- you don't-
Republican
you don't
woman
ask
versus a
these hard
Democrat
questions
man,
to everybody that you run across
I think
that
it
I
would be
do.
the Republican.
You're right. I don't have to ask them because when I go see people, they just kind of voice those opinions on me, whether I want them or not.
This is true. I mean, I would agree. But guys, now that we found something we all agree on, let's get back to bitching at each other.
Wait, what was that?
The boat parade.
The boat parade, we all agreed that it was okay.
We all gave it our sanction.
That's all right.
we
Are you
even
guys drinking?
smiled.
Hold on, I didn't say okay. I said I don't have an opinion.
Oh,
That's
sorry,
exactly
Fox abstained.
I abstain. I don't have an opinion one way or another.
Fox abstained. But let's go ahead and get into this one. So, Postmaster General DeJoy is in a world of shit. This one just came out today. When he was running, and I forget the name of the organization, it wasn't the post office. I'll put that out there. It was not the post office. But what he was doing before he ran, or before he became the Postmaster General, he encouraged people to donate to GOP candidates up and down the ballot and actually offered bonuses and incentives to reimburse them.
The Washington Post says Postmaster Louis DeJoy gave bonuses to employees who gave money to the Republican Party. And the allegation involves his time running a company called New Breed Logistics. The company's longtime HR director says the bonuses were bigger than the donations. Reimbursing political contributions is illegal. Now, a spokesperson for DeJoy says he got advice from an attorney to make sure the company complied with election laws. Attorney General took to Twitter to reiterate that it's illegal to reimburse someone for a political contribution. He tweeted, any credible allegations, quote, merit investigation by the appropriate state and federal authorities. How he did not speak to specifics in this case.
So, the fuck is that shit? You can't be doing that.
They've been doing it forever.
If that's
Everybody
true,
does
that's
it.
outrageous. And,
I would agree.
But like, if it's still in court, then honestly, I don't have an opinion on it.
True. I don't know that it's.
This is the first that I've heard about it, and if he did that, then yeah, he deserves everything that's coming to him.
No,
But-
that's jail time, is it not?
Hopefully.
Isn't that like
I would think.
prison
Sean,
time?
is that jail time?
I doubt it. I mean, the guy's in the Trump administration. He's going to be pardoned. It ain't going to happen.
I mean,
Let's
they're
be
all-
honest here. Number one, I would like to disagree from that perspective just because if you get dirt on you, Trump is so far done with you, it's not even funny. But that man distances himself like it's an Olympic sport.
I would also say that, like, I don't know that it necessarily matters whether it's red or blue. Like,
Oh, for
like,
sure. It doesn't matter what
these
side it's
take
on.
care of their buddies regardless. Like, that's just kind of how things go.
I would agree.
Both sides.
Like,
Both sides take
Right,
care of
like,
their
I
buddies
mean,
regardless.
they're all bullshit.
Definitely.
So it's like
I
they
would
all
agree
do
with that.
things that could land them all in prison, and they all give money to like each other. Like, it's just, I'm sure. Like, when I die, when I leave this earth, I hope that whatever afterlife exists, I am given infinite knowledge, because I would bet my right titty, and it's my largest, so I'm quite attached to it, that when I am bestowed with the infinite knowledge of the universe when I die, that I'm going to discover that all these people have been sitting in a room this whole time, hee-hawing with each other about pitting the people against each other. And they're
Yeah,
all best
I would
friends
agree.
behind closed
Like
doors
having a
anyway.
poker game
Like-
and whichever party like loses.
Fox, I don't know if
Like,
I don't
just
know if
don't know
you.
that it matters.
I don't know if you're familiar with House of Cards on Netflix, but I've told
No.
Sean that that freaking Washington's got to be like House of Cards. Everybody's whacking everybody, and
Like, I
freaking
don't-
people
Oh,
are
yeah,
dying
look at
on
fucking
trains
Clinton.
and shit.
Uh,
The Clintons, right?
yeah, the Clinton.
Maybe the
Fuck
Clintons were the
Clintons.
basis for that show.
Oh,
Damn, y'all. I'm trying to find stuff we can't agree on. Here we go. We'll go with Greg Locke. Greg Locke claims that there's no paradigm shift between Republicans and Democrats. I know we have some red meat here.
The things that you are beautiful at doing is drawing an understanding that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party never had some kind of historical switch like we've heard in our public school systems. I want you to really just kind of talk about that for a moment, because we have been lied to. The Democrats have always been slave owners. They've always been the party of the KKK. And you brought that to such light that I think it really, really ticked off the people on the left. Talk to that just for a moment.
Well, let's think about the point of the big switch. The left has been pushing this narrative of the big switch, the idea that the parties switch sides. Now, why are they doing it? They're doing it because they know that the Democratic Party has committed most of the worst crimes of American history. When you lay out a sort of series of America did this and America did that, you know, America exterminated the Indians, America had slave plantations, America had segregation, America had Jim Crow. No. America didn't do this. The Democrats did.
Yes.
They were the party of the Trail of Tears. They were the party of the slave plantation. They enacted all the Jim Crow laws of the American South. There's no exception to that rule. They started and revived the Ku Klux Klan. So the left knows this. The progressive historians know this. So they need a get out of jail free card. They need a kind of a way to take all the bad things that they did and push them or flip them onto the other side. That's the point of asserting the big switch. And the core of the argument is that somehow the racist Democrats,
the Dixiecrats, so-called, all became Republicans. That's really what they need to clinch the case. The only problem with it is that it's a very easy empirical claim to check out. You just have to whip out your phone, look up the Dixiecrats. There are a couple of hundred of them in the House, in the Senate, some governors, and just ask how many of those guys, let's count, switched parties and became Republicans? And the answer is exactly 2. One guy in the House, one guy in the Senate, Strom Thurmond, and all the other racist Dixiecrats lived and stayed and died and were lionized in the Democratic Party, sort of like Robert Byrd, who was a grand poobah of the Ku Klux Klan, and is to this day, you know, a mentor of many leading Democrats, including Hillary and Joe Biden.
Okay. I have a feeling.
Me first.
Okay, Fox. Go ahead.
Because once Sean goes, he's not going to stop. Okay, so I don't necessarily disagree that even today, and we can see this with Joe Biden, who was a segregationist. I don't necessarily disagree that there are Democrats who probably are just as fucking racist as your typical, what I would consider a typical Arkansas backwoods conservative. So I'm not disagreeing with that. However, I think that when we talk about
definition of a typical
the paradigm shift,
Arkansas.
I'm still talking. The paradigm shift that he's talking about is something in political science that we call party realignment. So that's when both sides of the political spectrum tend to move centrist, to where there's very little distinction between them, and the things that start to distinct between them start pulling them back apart, and you end up having 2 completely new parties. The parties realign, platform shifts, and while yes, we can say the Democratic Party of the da-da-da-da-da were the KKK leaders of this or that, we've had, I mean, at least, like half a dozen, if not more than that, party realignments since America became an independent state. And I will say that I do like that he makes a distinction between a Democrat and a Dixiecrat, because those are 2 completely different things. And I also think that we need to make a distinction between Republican and conservative and Democrat and left, because those things are not always together.
Right.
And have not always been together, because I would argue that while, yes, the Democratic Party was the party of slaveholders, they were not a left party. They were not a progressive party. So when we talk about leftism and we talk about progressivism, that like attaching arbitrary hierarchical names to those parties doesn't mean anything. Because progressive ideology is progressive ideology, whether you call it a Republican or a Democrat.
And I'm not saying this to say that you guys are the same, but I would say that as far as on the radical spectrum of things, the Tea Party progressives, there's a big difference. The Tea Parties are our progressive wing. The freaking leftists are the progressives or the
Tea Party
extreme.
Anymore? I didn't know they use Tea Party anymore.
I think they still call themselves Tea Party.
I think it's also really important.
Did it fizzle? I thought Trump was Tea Party. Hell, I don't know. I don't call him a conservative.
No.
I feel like it's really important when we talk about
Reagan a
paradigm
conservative.
shifts to like think about back to when the Constitution was written, when the Declaration of Independence was written. It was the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, and they both considered slaves as property. The Federalists would say that they were also considered people and deserved some representation. But if you look as far back as then, they were never that different in their ideologies as far as social progressiveness. What they differed on is how we control state and federal money, and how we create laws across the states. That's really only ever been the difference between the two.
Yeah, but even back when Grant was running for president, there was a big issue with that. That's when the Jim Crow law started coming on. That was
when the Democrats were still in charge.
Here's why they deny the paradigm switch, okay? And I'm just going to say it as fast as I can. In the late 1960s, early 1970s, Nixon enacted the Southern strategy, okay?
True.
And that's a fact.
I mean, that was true.
Conservatives ran to the Republican side and liberals ran to the Democrat side. That is the paradigm switch of both parties that happened in the late 60s and early 70s. Okay.
All you legitimately have to do is look at the Electoral College.
When you talk about how Democrats did all this bullshit, back in the day and slavery and all this, that was conservative. Okay.
No. Because
yes, conservatives always want to conserve and save the status quo. That's what slavery was. That's what everything else negative in this country has ever been. Okay, conservatives have been evil and fucking horrible to the minorities and the slaves, the indigenous people throughout the history of this country. It's liberals, abolitionists. They are the ones that actually saved everyone in this country.
You do realize that Republicans, conservatives, their party was founded on anti-slavery, right? And yeah, Richard Nixon is credited.
That was before the paradigm shift that he's discussing.
Paradigm switch. That's what I'm trying to make the distinction.
Here's the thing. Richard Nixon, yeah, he was credited with the Southern strategy, but if it actually worked, then why did Nixon lose the South, and why did the South continue to vote Democrat for the next 20, 25 years?
That are fucking
the South is slower, but not that
today.
Slow.
Nixon lost the South because of the third party candidate that was running was even more
all conservatives
crazy than what he was. But with that being said, they also didn't lose the South.
If Nixon lost only because of the third party, then why did Jimmy Carter, a Democrat, win the South for the next 2 presidential elections?
Let's be honest, it was geographic politics.
Win the South in his presidential election. The South didn't turn Republican, conservative, until 20 or 25 years after Nixon came up with this so-called Southern strategy, which didn't work.
No, that's a reality.
Reagan,
that actually happened.
Bush 1, excuse me. Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, all these guys won the fucking South.
Okay, the South as a whole didn't turn Republican until almost a quarter of a century after Nixon.
Georgia, what other state did did Jimmy Carter win?
What other state did he win?
In the South.
Clinton won Arkansas because he's here doesn't mean he won the whole damn South.
He won more than Arkansas.
6 U.S.
Bill Clinton won Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. Jimmy Carter won the South in 76.
Jimmy Carter did win the South. You're right.
He won 6 of the southern states. There were 13 in the Confederacy, right?
He won what I would consider the South, Sean. She's right.
So I just did the most benign Google search. I am prefacing this with political science is not my purview. I have taken a couple of classes and I know people that work in political science, but it's not my purview. But just with a quick little googly, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 by opponents of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed for the potential expansion of slavery into the Western territories. The party supported classical liberalism, opposed the expansion of slavery, and supported economic reform. And then it does this whole thing about Abraham Lincoln and da-da-da-da.
You said a key word there.
Hold on. After 1912, the party underwent a social ideological shift to the right. Following the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the party's core base shifted, with southern states becoming more reliably Republican in presidential politics. The party's 21st century base of support includes people living in rural areas, men, the silent generation, and white evangelical Christians.
I think you start seeing a shift from Democrat to Republican in the South because they started voting based on values, not based on party, because they started voting for Democrats and Democrats kept screwing them over. Also, Democrats were the party that voted for slavery. Democrats were the party that voted against the Civil Rights Act, against the Voting Rights Act.
Conservatives.
Those were Democrats.
You should be honest
It's got
about
nothing
it.
to do with
Those
the paradigm shift. Those are all pre-paradigm shift.
We've already stated that there's a difference in Democrats are not always left and Republicans are not always right.
I'm a Republican, but I'm not a conservative.
Democrats are consistently considered liberal and progressive. Like if you ask somebody, if a progressive person could be a Republican, most people will tell you there's no way. Democrats are progressive, Republicans are conservative.
Yeah,
And conservative doesn't mean that we want the status quo. We want values conserved.
Okay, y'all.
Point out.
Well, that's exactly what the status quo is, though. Like, it's those.
So because I want my children raised in a happy home, because I want the economy to be good, because I want to have my constitutional rights to own a gun and to have free speech. I'm conservative.
Super pro 2A. I own guns. I have my CCL.
Awesome. That's great.
So,
most of your leftists disagree with that.
No, liberals.
That's liberals. That's liberals.
That is
That's
liberals.
liberals.
No, that's leftist.
No. That is liberals. Liberals are anti-gun, anti-2A. Leftists are exactly that, a leftist ideology. So when you're looking at center, liberals are going to be like, "Ooh, over here." Leftists are going to not.
Liberals
not the
are
same,
going
right?
to be left of center.
I wouldn't even go that far with
But
that.
as far as anyone I've spoken to, literally voters, people following political ideologies, claiming parties, leftists voting left, pro 2A, own guns, pro Constitution, liberals, anti-Constitution.
I disagree with that. When we're talking about leftists,
liberal, left.
When we talk about
left supports guns,
okay.
like people.
Let me back this up. When I talk about leftism, I'm specifically talking about Marxism, Leninism, anarchism. I'm talking about radical.
Does not support
yes, they do.
personal freedom. Marxism, communism does not support personal freedom. It is 100% government control.
Oh God!
It is
Here comes
no
Sean.
personal freedom. It is no individual freedom.
Yeah, that's where you're wrong.
There is a greater good, and the
You
people
have
are
never
gonna
read
tell
Marx.
you how it
No,
goes.
You have never opened up Marx. You've never
He
read
was
Capital.
very much
You've
against
never done it all.
hierarchy.
You are
Absolutely
regurgitating
anti-government.
Fox News
Marxism
propaganda.
as a theory. Yeah,
You are
socialism
regurgitating-
as a theoretical ideal
Fox
is a
News
great
When I'm
system
talking
of
about
government.
socialism,
If you're
that's something
talking
different
about
too.
actual application, it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, we can get into
Communism
like
has
the application.
never been applied the way it's supposed to be because they've
can't
never
be.
gotten rid of
It's
money.
impossible for it
It
to
is
be because
not
it's humans
impossible.
applying it.
It is not impossible. We're the only species of animal on the planet that uses money to survive. And it's fucking asinine. And we could do away with it tomorrow.
And I will
can't, because there will always be people who want power. There will always be people
like
who want to
yourself.
be
Yes.
more.
Yes, people like
Okay.
yourself.
Sean, stop.
Me right now?
I'm gonna give you.
Sean.
I'm gonna give you a real world example of.
No, sorry,
I
sorry,
will give you
you
a
guys.
real-world
I'm not here for
example.
that this week. I'm not.
A real world example of how those ideologies have been put into practice. When we talk about colonialism in Africa, which this is the area of study that I have a wealth of knowledge about. When we talk about colonialism and imperialism in Africa, the social structures and the communities that were anarchist were the communities that were the absolute hardest to conquer. And the only reason that they were conquered at all is just a disparity between access to resources. Europe had guns, they didn't. That was the only reason. When you remove hierarchy, when you remove leaders, when you remove people having power over you, when you don't, they say that the easiest way to stop a movement or to stop the enemy is to cut off the head. Well, what if nobody has a head? Then you can't conquer a people. If there are no leaders, there's no power dynamics at play because everyone is just, obviously we're talking about an ideal world and we can argue back and forth on whether we think that that's possible or not. But to say that leftism is pro-government is just intellectually dishonest because it's just not true.
Okay, Manicus Manic, you haven't had an opportunity to chime in here. Go ahead.
For me, bottom line is I don't care about the titles. I don't care what they used to be. I wasn't alive back then. What I know is what they are preaching now. And that's what I vote. That's what I base my votes on, is what they're pushing now. And when I see what the Democratic Party is doing, in my opinion, it is wrong.
Okay.
Because all they're doing is keeping people dependent on them instead of trying to allow them to be their own people.
Okay. Okay. I see your point. I do. And I would definitely agree with you, Fox, as far as, there needs to be a stark contrast. Because even though I'm a Republican, I'm not what somebody would consider a conservative. I'm not a Trump supporter. But I do agree with the things that the Republican Party upholds. I was a Bush guy. I'll throw that out there, just to throw that out there. I was a Bush guy. I'm not a Trump guy. That's the difference between me and the modern day Republican Party. I feel a lot like Reagan back in the 80s when he said he didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left him. I feel like I'm getting to that point with the Republican Party. Sean, anything on this before we move on?
So many people misrepresent what leftist ideology is. That's why we were saying people, they haven't read Marx. They have not read Capital. They have not read what he actually wrote. Communist ideology has never been implemented in this country or anywhere. Okay. Right. When people are like, well, the Soviet Union was communist, North Korea is communist, China's communist. No, they're not, because Marx actually wrote what communism should actually be, and money has nothing to do with it. The fact that these communist countries have used monetary value on anything at all, they're not communist. Okay? They're communist in name only. It's like the Nazis saying that they were socialist Democrats or whatever, that they called themselves. In name only, we know that Nazis were actually fascists, right? You okay there, Tally? You good?
Is your gout acting up?
I don't know why. Like, you guys can all research this. It just gets worse at night. I don't know the rhyme or reason. Right. It just gets worse. I'm trying to. It doesn't hurt too bad. I'm just trying to make it through this. I got my foot propped up.
Anthony and I are both fans of Star Trek, right? So if you look at what Star Trek is and the ideology of what Gene Roddenberry, Anthony,
Antonio.
I'm sorry, Antonio. I'm sorry.
I understand we all look alike,
right.
Man.
That's true. No,
just whitewashed him so hard.
Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek, and there was an ideology to Star Trek where there is no money and everyone has what
I don't know dick about Star Trek
they need, housing, education, and everything is about trying to work towards the betterment of mankind. That is Marxism.
Yes,
and that's what fucking Gene Roddenberry tried to teach everyone what it really is about.
Well, and I would also,
and all this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when you're talking about like things being communism having never been applied, and people like to bring up Russia and Venezuela and Vietnam and China. The argument I always give is that just because they read the same source material doesn't mean they have the same praxis. Right. So they may have the same theory, but they don't have the same praxis. That would be like saying the Westboro Baptist Church and the KKK are an accurate depiction of Christianity. Most Christians are going to say, no, that's not an accurate depiction of Christianity, but they have the same source material. So it's, when, like Shiloh said, when you add humans, flawed humans, to any ideology, any at all, even the great old American capitalism, and I would argue mostly the great old American capitalism, you're going to have corruption. That is just that's just how it is what it is. And I would say my personal belief is and this is supported by biology. Humans are communal creatures. We are designed to live in communities. We are designed to be together. We are not designed to live alone, isolated from each other. Biologically speaking, organisms that work in communities for the betterment of the communities tend to survive evolution. as opposed to organisms that do not operate that way. And so even on a basic biological level, even if you take away like the morality of just giving a shit about your neighbor, like biologically we are designed to be communal, like mutual aid. Peter Kropotkin states that mutual aid is like the defining factor of like humanity. Like that's what we're supposed to do. And I guess to me, I have to sit here and wonder, like when we talk about like the propaganda that's been spewed against leftism, especially right now with the whole anti-ANTIFA thing, which I'm sure will lead into the next little topic, is that people who don't understand what these ideologies are, like for me, I say that I am a leftist. I am a radical leftist. I believe that we should take care of each other and be kind to each other and support one another. And if I have more than enough, then I'm going to help someone who doesn't have enough. And if like I don't believe in wage and like being bound by wages, I believe that you produce what is necessary for survival, maybe a little bit more for pleasure, because I don't think that pleasure is inherently bad. But I mean, we could get into my ideologies all the time. I guess it's just like I would have to question someone who would say, no, that's a bad idea when we talk about like feeding people or helping someone find adequate housing or making sure that no one dies from something that could be prevented through basic medical care. Like I would really challenge someone's humanity who said that they were against those things. And
Well,
those are basic
things.
These are basic ideas of leftism.
This is the way that I have always put it. I will help you up the mountain, but I'm not going to carry you. If you're not willing to put in some, I don't see why I should have to put in all.
I can agree with that thought, though.
I would say because we're the same species, and we're destroying this planet because we are the apex predator, right? We've done everything that we can to destroy everything around us. We're destroying the environment, all the animals. Maybe we need to carry ourselves and our neighbors with us and try to evolve, if you will, to a better place where we can all reap the benefits of this planet and, ourselves. We don't need to hoard anything and be better than anybody else. It's bullshit.
I just don't understand why my hard work should go to somebody that decides they don't want to do it.
Well, I mean, here's my question, and I'm going to ask the question because I'll have this conversation. I just also don't want to like get us over time or like take away from anything else that wants to get talked about. So I'm going to ask the question. When you talk about hard work, like how do you define work? How do you define what is acceptable work and what is unacceptable work? Because part of leftist ideology, and I say leftist is a broad term, you're going to get people who differ a little bit here and there, is that work should not be compulsory. Like you do the things that have to be done by consensus, like you have to dig ditches, you have to build latrines. There's things that have to get done that nobody likes to do. But ideally, in let's say an anarchist society, those things would be voted on, or you would draw a lottery, or the community would decide by consensus. And then everything else, it would be, if this person is just really passionate about farming and that's what they really wanted to do, then that's what they would do. If this person is super passionate about dancing, well, then that's what they would do. And they would teach dance. Like you would have people investing in the things that they cared about, and and the things that the society lacked in, you would decide as a community together, but everyone would be able to benefit from everyone else. It wouldn't be someone taking from you and you getting nothing in return. It would be you sharing with each other and you getting something from them while they also get something from you.
And what about the ones that don't share? The ones that just sit there and take? The ones that
you stop them from doing it.
I mean, in the reality that I'm sure there's going to be people, I mean, we could apply this to any leftist ideology. Like I'm a prison abolitionist. Well, what do you do with the people who truly do violent crimes? I don't have a catch-all answer. My personal opinion is you would have a community defense in place that would enforce the consensus. Consensus means that everybody agrees. So first and foremost, this person agreed to it in the first place. But if a couple of people just choose not to do whatever, well, okay, like whatever, let them do whatever they're going to do. I personally believe that when you allow people the freedom of expression, you take them out of wage labor, you take them out of a capitalist society, you're going to have more innovation. You're going to have more people willing to do the work because they're doing the work that they care about. Like, I personally don't believe that laziness is a thing that exists. People aren't lazy. People are burnt out. People are depressed. People are hurt. People are anxious. Like, that what we see as
People want to
laziness are
collect
other things at play.
unemployment and sit there and play video games all day. I think we have an issue.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I see that there are certainly.
Oh, you don't think there's a problem with people doing
it? No, hold on.
It's okay to do that? So I should quit my job, start playing video games.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we shouldn't make. I think that's a minority, and we shouldn't make policy based upon minority. You know what I'm saying? So we shouldn't. I think that the people who do take advantage of the welfare system and the people that do take, say, fuck this, I'm gonna go collect welfare and my unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. I think those are the minority of our unemployment users, of our, food stamp users, things like that.
And which is why I said I've always followed the rule of I will help you up the mountain, but I'm not going to carry you.
Well, and I also think it's really hard to envision an alternative when we've grown up in a capitalist society. That this is when we think of work, when we think of jobs, when we think of wages, like these are the things we think about. So when and I'm only going to speak for myself.
What you were saying with what is my definition of work, when I look at stuff like that, it is something that benefits everyone.
Okay, so
you teaching me to dance isn't going to benefit everyone.
I mean, why do the arts absolutely benefit everyone. There's been so many studies that show that the arts enhance cognitive abilities, that they enhance emotional intelligence. Like, the arts are absolutely important. Never mind the fact that it's
learn to dance, they're not going to die.
True.
Well, and I would argue that right there, that we only view things that are considered essential for basic survival as worthy of being good work. I would argue that is part of the poison of capitalism, because we are as human beings, we were not designed to just work and then die. That's not what we're designed to do. Humans are creative creatures. We are creatures capable of intellect and innovation above and beyond, I think, even what we realize. And so to say that the only things that count as work are things that keep you from death, or having what are the four basic things that you need for survival, like shelter, food, water, whatever it is. There are other things, like mental health is a thing. I would say leisure is important because that ties in with mental health. Physical health, I'm not going to, no, maybe you don't need to know how to dance in order to not die. But if dancing is your form of physical exercise, like, that keeps you healthy. That keeps you in good physical shape.
In productive work and hobby.
Well, and see, now we've defined work as needing to be productive. So what do we classify as productive? Like, is it productive to sit here and do this podcast? Is it productive to go watch a movie?
No, really,
is it productive? But look at what we're accomplishing by doing it. Look at the ideas that are being shared. Look at the work that's being done. Look at the way that our gears are turning in our minds. And hey, maybe tonight we all leave this conversation and nothing ever changes. But I would like to think that we take a little piece of each other. And this is true for any conversation, like not just this one, but I would like to think that we take a piece of each other and kind of chew on the things that we've discussed, and that even whether we hold fast to the ideologies we already had or we change a little bit, regardless of that because of what we do here, we are empowered to go into our communities and participate in our communities in relation to the things that we have discussed here. So while no, sitting here bullshitting for 3 hours in front of a camera in general is not productive, it is a stepping stone to things that I would classify as productive. Like anything that you do with a creative spirit or with an innovative spirit is productive.
I would agree. I think that, me listening to you, Antonio, talk about, your ideas and why you choose to support Donald Trump has brought me to a better understanding of why people do choose to support Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. There are people that are far off to the extreme past where you are, that I'm sure have crazier reasons for why they support Trump. But it's certainly, it's brought me a new understanding since we started. So that's why I see this as productive, because number one, I believe that, amongst us 6 individuals, we're a rare breed that's left in America, in my opinion, that we are able to sit here and we're actually able to talk about these things. We aren't in our feelings, and we're able to understand each other's points of view a little bit better, and we remain friends even though, ideologically we disagree on things.
I don't know about all that. For me personally, like I'll sit here and bullshit with y'all all day. This is something that I consider to be liberatory work, but I'm just gonna be honest. I won't be friends with you outside of this conversation. That's just me personally.
Nice. So I grew up in a town where like all the kids in the schools went to different churches. You were either Methodist, Baptist, Church of Christ, Pentecostal, whatever. And I grew up in an atmosphere where we all debated religious beliefs, and we busted balls and we talked shit about each other. But you know what? We all loved each other, because we were a bunch of kids in Mayflower that didn't have anything else but each other, and we had fun doing that. Oh, well, yeah, it's Mayflower now. But,
my grandparents lived in Mayflower most of my life. So.
Right, but the point I'm trying to make is that years ago, people could actually talk about religion and politics and have fun, and even make fun of each other or disagree with each other heatedly, but never hate each other, right? Like we had a great time, and it hasn't been until Fox News came along, and I really noticed that about 25 years ago, people started dropping off and drawing battle lines and different things like that. MSNBC came along. People started drawing more battle lines and different things like that. The internet became really popular with Facebook. People built echo chambers of what they believe. And now people can't even fucking disagree without hating each other. And I think that's really sad, because you know what? Maybe I disagree with you, and maybe I disagree with you or even Michael, and I don't hate you at all for any reason. You're a different person than me. You came up in a different way. You have different philosophical beliefs, whatever. And that's cool, because the thing is what we've lost over the years, especially the last 20 years, is the ability that we can all compromise, which means we all lose a little bit to gain something, because we compromised on a common goal.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head as to what's wrong with politics these days. Absolutely nobody is willing to compromise.
Nobody.
Well,
they keep drawing these lines.
I don't know about, I'm not into the whole Democrat versus Republican as far as politics and compromise goes in that regard. I would say, and granted, I don't speak for all leftists. I only speak for myself. I don't hate what I would call in a protest scenario. I don't hate the opposition. I find the actions of the opposition to be a fundamental attack on people's humanity, and so I am going to stand in opposition to that. I do not actively hate you.
Well, when I say that,
I find you fundamentally. I find your beliefs, and this is the royal you, not like the you person.
right.
I find your belief system fundamentally flawed. I believe that it takes away people's humanity. I believe that it is my moral duty to advocate for marginalized people, and I'm going to continue to do that up to and including death.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think though that I think we all have our line in the sand. I think though what we're saying is our line in the sand keeps moving forward, and people don't want to agree on anything anymore.
Hey, if you can prove me wrong, then I will definitely look at what you're saying, and I might change my opinion. That's how I became, a leftist from a conservative, an extreme conservative religious background.
Same.
I went the complete opposite way because I started looking at facts. I didn't just look at ideologies. I didn't just look at what pundits say, what people regurgitated to me 24 hours a day. I actually look at scientific facts and reason, and that's why I have the strong opinions that I have now.
You were going to say something, Manic Hispanic?
I was just trying to find out what we were considering marginalized people.
Well, it depends on what part of the world you're talking about. It depends on what country you're talking about. It depends on what part of the country you're talking about. It depends on a lot of factors. You're going to have to narrow that question down in order for me to give it an answer.
You were the one that said that you will fight. You feel that.
Are you asking for my personal, like what I mean? Are you asking what I mean? Or are we asking? Okay, so when I say that I find it my moral obligation to stand up, I don't want to say stand up for, because that's, I don't know, that just sounds funny, but to advocate for marginalized communities. I speak primarily of Black communities, queer communities, immigrant communities, trans communities, communities that are actively being oppressed or even covertly being oppressed by, and we could talk about white supremacy and how that plays into America at its foundation and all that, but any community that is a victim of white supremacy is what you're gonna giggle, but the patriarchy.
I am Mexican.
Right.
Okay. And I have been oppressed by police officers. I've been detained for absolutely no reason, but I don't understand why white people feel they have to fight for me.
And that's what I was about to say. I don't think that necessarily we should be saying that we have to speak up. I think that we should be empowering those people to speak up.
That is a problem with liberal politics, is that, the whole great white hype. A lot of these white liberals think that they can come in and save the day, and they need to shut the fuck up, honestly.
I'll say Joe's one of the worst.
Joe Biden is one of those people. I would agree with that, but
I agree.
I think that I don't.
So I find it a little downtrodden that you say that you feel obligated to help people like me.
Who said that?
Because I'm a minority.
Who said that?
I think that's how he took it from Fox.
I didn't.
Well, allow me to clarify. When I say that I find it my moral obligation to, I guess I should reword it to say I find it my moral obligation to stand in solidarity with marginalized communities.
I can agree with that.
I think that, and what I mean by that is, we're talking about, you brought up police officers. So let's just use this as an example. I'm going to talk a lot of shit about Portland right now. I know that it's not the popular leftist thing to do to talk shit about Portland right now. But I've had this conversation with organizers of color, and it's also my personal opinion. While in the beginning of the Portland protests, they were Black-led. Black organizers, Black community members were leading the charge. It was a Black Lives Matter movement, so Black folks should be leading that charge. Well, now what you have is a lot of white people coming in, and now I don't disagree with property destruction as a valid form of protest. However, I do think that those things need to be led by the community that is seeking liberation in their own movement. I do not think that it is acceptable for white people to come in and throw a brick in a window and them being the first person to do it, or them being the one setting the tone. I think that as the person in that moment, like as a white ally, it is my job to stand in solidarity. You want to throw a brick? All right, let's go. We'll throw a brick. But if that's not what you want to do in your movement, it's not my place to tell you how to run your movement. Does that better clarify?
Yeah.
It makes sense to
my
me.
position.
It makes it makes sense to me, definitely. Sean, you kind of gave the cockeye there.
I'm just gonna say we had a previous conversation where we talked about something before we went on the air. I'm not gonna mention that specifically, but that kind of is a contradiction to what you said about myself and certain feminists earlier. And I know you ideologically disagree with what we believe 100%. I get that. But I mean, let us do our own thing.
Actually, what I said was that you as a man do not need to be telling me as a woman how I should feel on women's issues and invalidating the gender identity of women. If me and another woman want to argue about it, we can do that. I just did not. I found it deeply uncomfortable to be having that conversation with you as a man.
I can see that point. Same as we just were talking about the other point. Guys, we got a couple more things to get to before we wrap up, and we'll go to this one here.
We got like 40 minutes.
Yeah, we got 40 minutes.
And I'm sure my best friends are ready for me to get out of their house.
We'll go ahead and try to start wrapping things up here. Novak Djokovic over the weekend hit a line judge with a tennis ball out of frustration. And we have the video here to watch, and I think we're all going to mostly be in agreement on this. But I'm going to kind of throw a little sizzle in the pot whenever we get back.
Yeah, we've got a serious situation on our hands here. You could. Oh, Novak understands.
Okay, that's all we need to see of it. We don't need to see it over and over again. But with that being said, Sean, you kind of said, that this guy's going to be labeled as a bad guy for tennis and things like that. My thing is this. It's time that we need to look at the situation case by case. In this case, the gentleman was frustrated. I see this in sports everywhere, every period. We don't need to hold Novak Djokovic any different than we do Odell Beckham Jr. in the NFL or Tom Brady in the NFL. He shouldn't be labeled a bad guy because he got frustrated and he hit a ball and it accidentally struck a woman in the throat.
Yeah, but you're talking about a sport that's older than the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. This sport's been going around
but
for
everything evolves,
almost 300 years. And there are specific rules about losing your temper at these Grand Slam events. If it was a minor, slam event, then it might not have been noticed so much. This was the U.S. Open, national television. This guy got frustrated, hit a ball, hit a judge in the throat. He got disqualified.
And you could see the remorse on his face as soon as he did it.
Right. But there's a higher standard to this sport than there is other sports.
And I think that's shitty, though.
Well, that's just the way it is, though. I mean, if you're a tennis fan and you saw that, but as soon as you saw it, if you're a tennis fan, you would know for a fact. You were like, oh, shit, he's out of the U.S. Open. That's just the way it is. John McEnroe got kicked out of the U.S. Open 20 years ago because he cussed out a judge. He just used foul language.
But isn't it time? What I'm calling for is an evolution once again. This guy shouldn't be, for losing his temper once, this guy shouldn't be villainized amongst the sport. It's time, like we say, everything evolves.
That's tennis, bro. I mean, he's going to be villainized for the rest of his career. He is the bad boy. he just took the mantle from John McEnroe, and it sucks for the guy.
Was it Venus or Serena that like went off on
I
somebody
think it was
a couple years ago?
I want to say I want to say it was Venus. I want to say it was
That
Venus.
went off on
She
somebody.
did. She went
And,
off
I
on
mean,
that.
She was
who sits in the
dragged.
chair?
She was completely villainized for that.
Yes, she was.
completely
So
villainized.
my thing is, if you're gonna villainize her, you better villainize this guy too.
True, true. But
I
at
would
the
agree.
same time, I would disagree that she should have been villainized. Once again, we
I mean,
at a basketball
agree with
game,
that,
you're sitting there when a coach goes off on a referee, all the basketball fans on that team are like, yeah, woo! But if you're sitting in a tennis court, you're supposed to be like, oh, that person can't argue.
Do you want to know like my
Evolve.
Do you want to know my response as to why I think it is that way?
Why?
Classism. I think that tennis is traditionally a sport both played by, but engaged in by upper middle class to wealthy people.
Good point.
As opposed
Kinda like golf.
as opposed to like football, which is played at every good old American high school.
That's a good point.
And you know what I'm saying? So I think that
they're kind of snooty in the tennis
correct.
community.
I think the
agree.
classist undertones are why that is the way that is.
Well, you're never
'Cause, I mean,
going
look
to
at golf.
become.
They ain't
Yeah,
screaming and hollering when you get a hole in one. Like
No. No, I mean it is the sad thing
may be
about
kicked
tennis
out.
is that you're not going to win a Grand Slam coming from Mayflower, Arkansas, playing over at Conway
Right.
High School and being a
Right.
champion right there. Now you might go to UCA and work your way up the levels, because your family gave you the money to go to college. That's the difference. You can come from that background and go into tennis and become a Grand Slam champion, but without money, you're not going to. It is an exclusive club in tennis. It kind of sucks. I hate that, but it is getting better. They are starting to give scholarships to different schools all around the country. Andre Agassi has a school there in Las Vegas.
Honestly, to
where
be
he's
fair,
doing amazing things for children out
I
there.
think Venus and Serena kind of broke that mold as far as classism.
they
Because
didn't.
Venus and were
No.
they from an affluent family?
They were not from an affluent family, but they were treated very horribly as they were coming up. There was
really?
Okay. Yes, there was an open that they went to where they were racially discriminated against, and in fact, Andre Agassi was one of them. Pete Sampras was another that actually left the tournament because of how badly they were treated.
I did not
You
know
see
that.
this?
I'll be
Yeah.
damned.
Yeah.
You see this a lot in the arts, like the difference in like live music versus live theater. You see this in, oh gosh, what would be another example? Ballet versus urban dance. Like you see this in a lot of like things that are traditionally enjoyed or invented by the poor or by people of color tend to be the one. I don't want to say rowdy, but like there's not a whole lot of like, and I don't even want to say lack of decorum because that in and of itself is a classist statement. But I think you're understanding.
But
like,
no, absolutely,
like,
I agree with
things
you.
that are enjoyed by the rich, like there's all of this red tape. And there's all these
Football and
qualifications.
tennis, are two totally different fans. I mean, I enjoy tennis, but at the same time, you can't go to Wimbledon and hoop and holler. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Right.
The average NFL fan, they're great people. I'm an NFL fan. I love football,
Not
professional
about any
football.
sport.
Yeah. But tennis is different, man. You got to wear white gloves when you go to tennis. You gotta act a certain
and
way.
nobody closes a business deal on a football field.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Very
like
good
that
point.
doesn't happen.
Oh, never thought about that. Good
That doesn't
point.
happen. Like they close business deals on a golf course. They close
or-
business deals playing doubles with their other business friends. Like that's how you,
Right.
you know. So I
Very
think
true.
I think that
you're
the
right.
culture surrounding those sports is different.
Very true. Manicus Manic, you think it's time tennis has evolved, or how do you feel about this?
Look at my color. I don't care about tennis.
Oh my God, I think that just made my night. But no,
That's awesome.
I mean, that's true. I think I never knew that about Venus and Serena. Whenever Venus and Serena were coming up in their prime, I was
They-
really young.
they face a lot of racial discrimination, especially in some of the private clubs and things that they went to. There's some documentaries that you could watch about that, and it was pretty terrible. Even Roger Federer, he got fed up with it at one point and walked away from one of the actual tournaments because of what happened to Venus Williams.
Well, and you know, I know for a fact, I remember back in 2012 that, you know, tennis is slow to evolve, because I remember back in 2012 they were still fighting over the checks that the Wimbledon women's winner and the Wimbledon men's winner gets. It's fact. Tennis has been slow to evolve. But real quick, guys, I know Fox, you have to peace out pretty quick here, so we'll go ahead and go into our American Idiots of the Week, and we'll start with you, so you can go
we're
ahead
not
and
going to
get.
talk about Antifa and Biden.
Did we? Oh crap! I thought I didn't think
Look,
about that.
I've been
I
playing
thought you had to peace out. I thought you had to peace out. Okay,
no,
my bad.
we're going to talk about
My
Antifa
bad.
and
Okay.
Biden.
We'll talk about Antifa and Biden. So President Trump claimed in a new interview, I believe done by what's her name over at Fox News? I forget her name. But she did a sit-down interview with Trump, and he said he is controlled by Antifa and deep state shadow people. So we'll start with you, Fox. Go ahead. You've been waiting on this all night.
So I want to preface this by when people talk of Antifa, I think that there is a huge misunderstanding as to what Antifa is. First of all, Antifa is not an organization. There's no membership. There's no like leaders. It's not a club you can be a part of. Like, it is just a thing that a person is, like, and it stands
Antifa
for
is what Anonymous evolved from, correct? Or evolved into, right?
No.
Okay,
No.
see, that was my
No.
understanding was
So,
Anonymous pretty much became Antifa.
No. So Antifa has actually existed for decades. It stands for anti-fascism. That should just kind of be the baseline for everybody. Like, I would be very concerned for anyone who did not say they were anti-fascist. And that's it. That's all it is. There's literally nothing more to it. Now, typically, what I will say is you get these people who don't really, and I will say that, like Anonymous, you will get people who don't really understand what it is that they're talking about, who will make these little Facebook posts like Antifa, like our local Antifa chapter. Like, people did that with Anonymous way back in the day, not really understanding what Anonymous even was. I would also argue that Antifa, the way that it is understood now, has existed at least as long as I've been in high school, but you didn't hear dick about it until Donald Trump said that it was a terrorist organization. Like, if you are saying that people who are anti-fascist are terrorists, then you're saying that you are a fascist. Like that, I mean, that's just how it is, period, point blank. Like, just using the meaning of words. If you are saying that anti-fascism is terrorist work, you're a fascist. Because who else would think that anti-fascists are terrorists?
Yeah, but the people that disagree with you would just say, "No, we're not."
Well, of course,
and that's
they
it.
do. They're going to say that with anything.
I was about to say, I'm sure the Manic Hispanic may disagree.
As far as Antifa controlling Biden, people who tend to identify with anti-fascist ideology are also radical leftists. So it is laughable to me that anyone would think that Antifa, even if it were an organization, would control Biden, because guess what? We hate that son of a bitch too.
The only person, the only group out there that controls Biden is Big Pharmaceutical, right?
They're not so shadowy.
Halliburton,
the same people that control the other side of the aisle too.
Exactly. All the people that yes, all the elitists that are for war, Big Pharma, the medical industry. Those are the people that pull the strings for Joe Biden.
Right? I agree.
Yeah.
And I would say when we talk about deep state, like,
there's no such thing.
I'm not even going to say that I would agree or disagree whether or not there is a deep state, because I mean, I just don't know. I think that there's some shady shit in general that doesn't make sense sometimes, but I don't know that I think that there's like a shadow government somewhere pulling all
The
the strings.
Illuminati doesn't exist, Fox.
I would say even if that did exist, it would be comprised of the wealthy and the elite anyway, because they're the only ones that would have the power to enact things like that. So I'm comfortable just saying that the wealthy and the elite are the ones pulling the strings anyway.
Right.
Because they're the ones with the power. Like, they're the ones who control the stocks. They're the ones that control imports and exports, which is what gives our dollar value. Like,
very true. Very true.
I think we could all agree with that. I mean, there is no Illuminati. The Masons aren't shit anymore.
Why you got to go after the Masons?
Because I'm going to go after all of these conspiracy theories right now. All of it's bullshit.
Is there a Bermuda Triangle?
No.
Yes.
There's no such thing. No.
What about Area 51?
Yes, I've seen it. I've actually been there.
I was going to say, Area 51's true.
Are we just round table and conspiracy theories?
Fair. Hold on. Was Kennedy killed by more than one individual?
Yeah.
Probably.
That one hurts my heart because I actually do. And the only reason why I say that is the way my world history teacher taught me in 11th grade. He broke it down shot by shot, and it makes sense that it was possible that it could happen. Manic Hispanic, you haven't had a chance to get in on this.
Right.
I don't think Antifa is controlling Biden at all. What I will disagree with Fox on is it's not Antifa. It's people that go out as a representative of Antifa. You get people that will go and burn down stores claiming they're Antifa. So it's a big difference in the actual anti-fascist group and people that just want to cause problems in the name of anything.
I think that's the same thing, though, you just said. You know, it's these spoiled punk kids who, I'm Antifa, ooh. You know, it's the new cool thing.
We call them LARPers. Like people that want LARPers.
If it's the LARPer I'm thinking of, that's awesome.
Live action role players.
Live action role play, yeah.
The people who go out into these streets and like here's like you're getting like the most raw piece of me. Like, I fully believe in liberation efforts. I fully believe in autonomy from the state. What comes with that can include death. Like, just even like look at the Black Panthers. They had a free breakfast program and it got them bombed. So you get these kids, or even just well-meaning but maybe ignorant adults too, who don't really understand, maybe don't have a lot of guidance. Usually in these areas, and I'm gonna pick on Portland some more. Usually in these areas that are predominantly white anyway. I mean, I lived in the Pacific Northwest, and so I know its demographics pretty well. These predominantly white areas where there's not a lot of intersectionality, and they saw the cool anarchy symbol on the wristbands at Hot Topic when they were 16 and thought it was super cool. Like, you get it. I'm not going to say that you don't get people like that going to these actions and busting shit up. For like a good example would be, I agree with property destruction. What do I mean by that? Yes, go bust up your courthouse. No, don't bust up that small business that is just trying to survive. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I absolutely support property destruction, but if you're going to attack somebody, it needs to be the oppressive state.
Hey, you know what? Fuck even that Target. I'm just saying.
Oh, and Walmart. Yes. Fuck Walmart. Fuck
that
Walmart.
Target. And you know what that Target dude said? That Target dude said, you know what? We'll build it back and it's okay. Go ahead and destroy that motherfucker again. That is the coolest goddamn CEO I've ever heard from.
They have insurance for that kind of shit. So if people want to destroy like a major business, Walmart, Target, some kind of bullshit like that, fuck it. Who cares? They're not hurting the little guy. When they go after the little guy, that's where I'm like, no, man, don't fuck with that dude.
Right.
Yeah, that dude's one of us.
But whenever they burn down the Target or they burn down the Walmart, what about the people that are just making their minimum wage there?
In the case of Target, they did say that they would continue paying their wages. I will say
those people would stand in class solidarity with those who are taking action against the state. Now, I know that that's not
no
happening
social
in all situations. Like, there's going to be growing pains. That is why mutual aid organizations like the one I co-organize are so unbelievably important, so that people can be taken care of in times of civil unrest.
I know my dad had polio, so he couldn't work. He was drawing disability. My mom worked at Walmart.
Right.
Had a group come through and burn down the Walmart, we would have been sunk.
Right.
I mean, that is a possibility that probably wouldn't have happened in that day and age, because it was a different time.
Well, and Walmart was different then. As
Walmart was different then. Sam
died,
that may be, but the people like my mom who work there aren't different.
True. Even today, there are people that are just getting by, working at Walmart, just barely getting by, and they need that check. And I absolutely would sympathize with those people, because I can guarantee you Walmart's not going to be as cool as the Target CEO, and you're not going to see Walmart come out and be like, yeah, we're going to continue to pay these people's wages. No. I guarantee you that. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but they're assholes for not doing that. And I agree with you. That would be sad.
And that's why
I'll give you some secrets on Walmart too. Whenever you do work for them, they pay on a net 45. I think it's 45, where everybody else bills on a net 30. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have enough money to carry you past those little days, you can go bankrupt real quick.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do personally know some people that worked at Walmart when I was 16 that are millionaires right now because they invested their paychecks into their stock. And it split so many times, and these guys still work at Walmart. They're still like, department managers and shit, working for the paint department or the car department or whatever.
You're in Northwest Arkansas, aren't you?
No, he's not. He's in.
I'm talking
he's
about
in
Conway
Central.
Arkansas. I know at least 3 people that became millionaires because of that, because they invested their money wisely. They did what they were supposed to do. They fucking still work there. One of them's a people greeter.
Let's be fair.
Insane.
Let's be fair. That's not the normal Walmart experience.
It's not. It's not the normal experience, but that opportunity was there. So conservatives would say, well, the people that didn't do that, they're the suckers and losers. The people that actually did do that, they're the winners. And I don't see it that way. They saw the opportunity and they took advantage of it, just like most of us would. And they were able to do that. Most people couldn't do that.
Take advantage of that opportunity.
Most people couldn't take advantage of that opportunity. And that's what's sad. Everyone should have that opportunity.
And I would also say that just talking, this is why I'm so passionate about mutual aid. Like, I'm so passionate about mutual aid, because ideally we wouldn't need a Walmart. We're just like taking care of each other. And if something like that were to happen and a Walmart burned down and those people lost their jobs, guess what? Your mutual aid organization step in and say, all right, we've got your medical care until you find a new job. We've got your bills until you find a new job. We've got your food. We'll watch your kids. Like, that's what mutual aid's all about. Like, you know what? Something shitty happened. We're going to step in and we're going to take care of you.
Yeah, and that's where people need to stop, the whole, like Trump's about to do this whole thing where he's going to cancel anti-racist training on most government facilities. And I think that's just fucking asinine, because we're the same goddamn species. Every fucking one of us. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're Hispanic, you're an Indian, you're from India,
be fair,
whatever.
That's for federal employees, but
but still,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
We are 99.9% compatible in everything. We are the same fucking species, and there should be no differences.
Once again, I don't know how basic training was for YouTube, but first day we walked in and they told us literally, and I'm going to use foul language because they did. They said, hey, who here has a problem with black people, white people, Hispanic people, or anything? And nobody raised their hand, obviously, but he was like, good. Because if anybody, No, not at all.
Okay, I'm like, if that's what you're about to do, we can have box.
But he literally was like, there's the fucking door, because we don't need that shit here. You're here to fucking protect that person right next to you, and we don't need that shit here. That's, like, legitimately, every fucking company needs to have that exact same talk with their employees on day one. If you're here for that bullshit, then we don't fucking need you, and you don't need to be employed here. So the fact that he's getting rid of sensitivity training and things like that, I think is absolutely asinine.
I will say,
especially with what's going on in the world today.
Studies have shown that training actually doesn't do anything unless it accompanies anti-racist policy. So if you only apply the training, but you don't enforce policy, there's no difference in as if you didn't do it at all.
Right, that makes sense. There's no consequences.
Obviously, my response would be, okay, implement policy then, not get rid of training.
right, exactly.
So, but yeah, like in every other aspect of what you said, I completely agree.
And, I think you're absolutely right. If anything, we don't need to be getting rid of the policy. We need to be expanding the policy. If we can spend a full day, not saying that this is any less important, but I remember in the Air Force, we had a day where there was a lot of active duty suicides going on at the time. We had a day where literally we just sat there around a table talking about our feelings. If we can take a day away from the mission to do that, we can take a day away from the mission to talk about, hey, support your people that you're with. Support your wingman in our case, and you should enforce every year. I mean, I'm not even saying we need a CBT because CBTs are ridiculous. I tell you, I still today will click through them motherfuckers and not read them for a second.
Can you define what a CBT is? I'm from
computer-based training.
Okay, I'm about to say I'm from a family of veterans, but I did not serve. So what I know is literally what I know by osmosis.
Yeah, so computer-based training basically is what you would do like on day one at Walmart or something. You go through and you have them stupid orientation things. I literally click through them motherfuckers. That's not going to have an impact on me. Literally, I need somebody standing there in front of me saying, hey, motherfucker, do this shit, and here's what we're going to do if you don't do this shit. That's how you make an impact. Because I'm sure, Antonio, you were shaking your head, yes. Sean, I'm not sure if you did this, but I clicked through them motherfuckers. If I don't retain any of that information, to be 100% honest with you, I'm just trying to get it over with.
Yep.
I need somebody there. If you want me to retain something, have somebody there talking to me.
But let me throw this popular, probably unpopular, statement out here. If we're looking at getting rid of racism and going to a anti-racist policy, it's got to be the same all the way around.
Absolutely agree.
I mean, affirmative action is racist.
Why?
I don't know about that, though.
It's not about you passing a test to get a spot. It's about, well, this many spots has to be filled up with a minority.
Okay, so when affirmative action first, when affirmative action first came into play, it was needed because minorities weren't being hired for any jobs at all. Now, the fact that they completely did away with it, I think was wrong. I think they should have done a tier system where they actually kind of step down slowly. Getting rid of the program altogether, I think that hurt minorities quite a bit.
I want to say it's called the Rooney. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would also argue that you're talking about a quota system, which is not affirmative action. Affirmative action and a quota system are two completely different things. So when we talk about affirmative action, so let's look at people like to bring up like college entrance exams and like college scholarships and things of that nature. When we look at college entrance exams, standardized testing. So now I'm from Cabot. So I am from a predominantly white school that got a hell of a lot of funding, both private and public. I did not know that it was that this is not the norm, but all of my AP exams were paid for by the school. I didn't have to pay for them. The school paid for them. I did not know that is not the norm, that those sons of bitches are about $50 a pop.
Yeah, damn.
That if you are in the Little Rock School District, and this may have changed since I was in high school, but if you are in other school districts, and I think the Little Rock School District is one of them, and it may be school to school dependent and not district wide, if you take an AP class, you are responsible for paying for that exam.
That may be No Child Left Behind too, though.
I was also in choir, And this may shock people, but in Inquirer, you do competitions. I did not realize that there are fees associated with those competitions. You actually have to pay per head for the people that are in your choir. Cabot never had to pay for that. Cabot never had to do that. The school paid for that for us. They paid our competition fees. They paid for our music. We didn't have to buy the music, and our director didn't have to like screen print the music and put it into a binder for us. That's not the norm. So when you have schools who don't have access to the things that, for example, Cabot has access to, they're already starting at a disadvantage when they walk into that ACT room. Not because they're less smart or have less capability of being just as intelligent as the person next to them, but they were not afforded the opportunities to grow their intellect and to grow like every other facet of what we consider schooling. And so saying, hey, we're going to ensure that the people that we have spent so many years keeping under the thumb now have an opportunity to and I would argue that even with all this, we still have a racist as shit society, and even when people get out of college, they're oppressed. Like I would say, like it's really hard for me to speak about whether or not it has helped because I am not a person of color and that's not my lived experience. So I can't tell you whether or not those communities feel like they actually did anything. I can only speak to policy and data and what I do know about what affirmative action actually sought to do and how that relates to something like the school system and standardized testing and poverty and access to resources and things of that nature.
I can speak to something, Manic Hispanic, that may help some of our other viewers, of a policy that is somewhat affirmative action, but it's more, making sure there's equality, or that's what it was built to do. The NFL's Rooney Rule requires you, if you have a head coaching vacancy, to interview a minority candidate. But there's nothing there to back it up. There's no enforcement, so to speak. So what ends up happening is with the Rooney Rule, people will interview minority candidates and basically just do it just to do it. So I think that there needs to be a ability to even the playing field, so these people that may be, minorities, but they, also may very well be more qualified than the average white person coming in off the street or what have you, black, yellow, pink, purple polka dots, it needs to have something behind it where you make sure that, these people are given an equal and opportune playing field to interview in, any sort of case.
Well,
I think that's where the Rooney Rule fails.
I'm going to quote Mr. Messia when he said, we just lower the standards and lower the standards and lower the standards to allow people to get through because they want to complain about where they're at.
Why not keep the standards where they are and raise the school standards up?
That's my point. Standardized testing. This
like
is
in this case,
I'm sorry that
like in Fox's case, why are we paying that across the board?
Standardized
testing bullshit anyway.
So that
I would agree. Standardized testing in America is bullshit. When you look at European countries like Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, different places like that, they don't standardize test their kids. Their kids don't go to school 8 hours a day. They go from 10 in the morning to about 2 in the afternoon, about 4, maybe 4.5 hours a day. That's what they do. They have better test results. They're smarter than our kids. They get better jobs than our kids because they know what they're fucking doing. They actually look to what works to educate children. We have these weird standardized tests where we demonize the teachers and we test them. We test the kids. We do all this weird shit. We keep them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It doesn't work.
Load them up with 2 hours a night of homework.
And I mentioned a very
our school system
controversial.
It's failing.
I missed. I mentioned a very controversial piece of legislation just in passing, but No Child Left Behind. In theory, No Child Left Behind. I guess I can't say it makes sense because
we've all forgotten
basically
about it.
I mean is No Child Left Behind defunds the schools that need it the most. If your schools are hurting, you should get more funding, you would think, but it actually pulls that funding. So it's almost counterproductive. So that's where No Child Left Behind has left us, is actually leaving a ton of children behind.
So how much do y'all know about the situation in the Little Rock School District right now? Because this is a really good...
I know
would be a
nothing
really
about
good example.
LRSD.
Okay, so
I think the state came in and took it over. That's the last
so
I knew.
here's, well, yes and no. The state basically designated schools that were failing versus schools that were not failing, and rendered the control of the schools that were failing to the state and control of the schools that were not failing to local control, like local school boards, community advocacy, things of that nature. If you took a map and you took that map and of all of these schools and their ratings, like A schools, F schools, A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, and you overlay it with racial demographics or class demographics, like income demographics, you will see that the schools that are failing the most are going to be schools in lower income areas, usually communities of color. These are going to be families who are, both parents are working, sometimes multiple jobs, possibly single parent households. These are families that are working, they're working hard, but don't have the same access to resources as these schools that are not failing. And I don't even like using this terminology because the whole idea of it is bullshit. But so I think that this kind of sort of ties into like discussions of affirmative action. And I brought up schools because it just happens to be the thing that I know a little bit about. I think that this could probably be an argument you could have in other areas, employment, housing opportunities. I think that when you have to look at every facet of the system in order to really have a nuanced viewpoint of affirmative action and systemic racism, because it goes so much deeper than someone saying something mean to you or someone firing you because of your race. Like, it goes so deep. It goes like a really good book to read. And I'm not sure if y'all are readers, but I'm always going to suggest a really good book. The Color of Law is a really, really good book that talks about redlining and housing inequality shortly after and during the civil rights movement, and how those things still affect Black families today. I'm sure that there's ones in relation to education. I'm sure there's ones in relation to education out there. I just don't happen to know them. But I would like, there's just so many layers to this, and ideally we wouldn't need affirmative action, but unfortunately we live in a country that was built on white supremacy, that upholds white supremacy, that benefits from white supremacy, that is run by the richest 1% and everybody else just gets fucked. Like, that is just the reality of the way America is run. So whether or not affirmative action succeeded in what it tried to do is an argument for the communities it tried to benefit, and not an argument I'm going to engage in. Right. But I would say that it sought to bridge the gaps that were left behind after things like Jim Crow completely devastated racial inequalities in the South. Well, not devastated them. It devastated racial equality, upheld racial inequality in the South. So, like I said, whether or not it succeeded, not my lane. Right. But I think that was, I mean, I believe wholeheartedly that was its intent.
Okay. Well, guys, we're about 2 minutes left, so we'll go ahead and do our American Idiot of the Week, and then we'll peace out. So, Fox, we'll start with you. Who's your American Idiot of the Week?
American.
Fox, you've had a whole week. You knew this was
No,
coming.
I didn't know. I didn't know that I would be here tonight.
True.
Come back.
Okay. Sean, who's the American Idiot of the Week for you?
My American Idiot for the week would be Mr. because of what he did at the U.S. Open, turning around, hitting a tennis ball as hard as he could, and hitting a woman in the throat. He got eliminated. He gets what he deserves. That's the rules. It sucks. Fuck it. Whatever. But he is the idiot because you should have self-control. And most sporting events should actually take a harsher look at what the players do, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the Major League Baseball. If you act a fool on the field, that's it. You should be thrown out of the game.
You're going to love mine. Go ahead, Manic Hispanic.
The Tennessee school system who decided to send waivers out for parents that were,
I seen that.
Parents that were looking at what their students, with their children were learning. Basically, the Tennessee school system didn't want the parents watching what was being taught to the kids.
Wow. That's special. I thought you were going to go someplace else. I saw a waiver that...
were they being taught evolution or something?
That I don't know. They just did not want the parents looking in on what students were being taught.
That's crazy to me.
Probably
like
Muslim ideas and different things like that.
Well, there's no Muslim ideas being taught in Tennessee. I'll promise you that.
I guarantee you that.
This goes out to all the great apes that are out there that drink Coors Light. I love y'all.
Okay, guys. So my American Idiot of the Week is the opposite of Sean's. My American Idiot of the Week is tennis as a whole. I think you should evolve. Come on now. The dude made a mistake. These guys are fucking wound up. They're trying to fucking.
We're supposed to learn from our mistakes, right?
This is true, but I'm sure he'll never do it again.
He'll learn.
It hurt. I guarantee you, he lost over $1 million by getting disqualified.
That guy is a multi-millionaire, and he is not going to be hurt by this decision at all. I promise you that. The only thing that's going to affect him is the record of him trying to beat Roger Federer. That's it.
That's true. But I think golf as a whole, God bless it, tennis as a whole should.
Tennis, you fuck.
Should go ahead and evolve. Fox, you got one yet?
Yes, I do. Sorry if it pisses anyone off, but Little Rock Police Chief Keith Humphrey, for classifying vandalism against the fallen cop memorial as a hate crime because jobs are not a protected class under hate crime laws, and that's just dumb.
I would agree. I
would agree.
And these are the people that are supposed to be enforcing our laws. They don't know our laws.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Oh my God, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You could get them for vandalism. You could get them for property destruction, but hate crime?
You know what? Bonus American Idiot of the Week. Here you go. I don't remember where it was, but there was a sheriff who just got fired over the past 7 days for.
It was here in Arkansas.
I know it was in Arkansas. I don't remember what town, but was just fired because he used a racial slur. So bonus American Idiot of the Week. You, sir, are a bastard.
You, sir, are a bastard.
Good night, everybody. You guys have a good week, and we'll see you next Monday right here at 7.
I might not be here, but, it depends on if they slap my wrist or not.
Shame on you, Sean. Y'all be good.